Jeb himself has confirmed that Superflat was intended for creative mode building, but he admits that playing it in survival mode is a fun challenge. However, I think he underemphasizes challenge there because the Bedrock edition of Flat Worlds has no structures, not even villages, and so doing any type of surviving is next to impossible. But today I wanted to show you how I managed to survive and thrive and managed to get myself water despite the lack of lakes or rivers. I managed to get gold despite the lack of caves and the nether, and I managed to convert a zombie villager despite having no access to potions. This all seemed impossible to me too, but today I wanted to share the 26 hours of real world time that I spent in this world managing to get that stuff done. And we're going to start with the one thing that did help us out, which was the bonus chest. Most people don't use this, but it's going to be a godsend right here, being potentially our only source of saplings. And as we load up the world and check out the chest, you can see that it is, but we only have dark oak. These are the most annoying saplings because if you don't have 4 of them, you effectively have none. However, we plant those trees and we try to gather as much raw meat as possible because we need food. And think about the challenge of surviving here. There's no farming, there's no tall grass to chop down. All we can do is kill some pigs and really hope that our carrots start to grow at some point soon, because we did find those in the bonus chest alongside cactus, I should mention right now. I mean, there's no sand anywhere in this world, but it's nice to have cactus that I can look at in this chest form anyway. And so the last housekeeping task I need to do is, obviously, it's easy to get lost in this world. It looks exactly the same in every direction. I don't want to lose my stuff, and so I make a spawn pillar. This thing is beautiful. It's one of the greatest builds I've ever put together, and I just want you all to appreciate it for a second before we move on to what is the actual point of what we're doing here. How are we going to do anything? Well, the idea is if we can get villagers, we can make a huge amount of progress, but how are we ever going to get those? There are 3 components you need to get a villager. One is a zombie villager, one is a golden apple, and the other is a splash potion of weakness. Zombie villagers just spawn naturally. 1 in every 20 zombies is a zombie villager. Easy, problem solved. Brewing a splash potion of weakness is impossible because no matter how far you progress without using cheats or some other form of like mod or glitch or anything like that, you will never be able to go to the nether, so you'll never be able to craft potions. However, we're in luck. Witches will sometimes throw splash potions of weakness at you, and I'm hoping we can try and angle that onto a zombie villager later. But the hardest bit here is the golden apple, because getting apples easy enough. I was surprised to learn, but dark oak trees will drop them, and so we've got one of the crafting ingredients, but we don't have the other 8 gold ingots. How can we get gold ingots? Well, at least in modern Minecraft, you won't find them as a drop from zombies or drowns anymore. That would have been the easier way forward, but zombies only drop iron ingots and drowns only drop copper ingots. So what are we going to do? We have to hope that we can somehow have lightning strike a pig, which will turn it into a zombie piglin. And if we kill a zombie piglin, we have a 1 in 40 chance of getting a gold ingot and a 1 in 2 chance of getting a gold nugget. This means on average, if we kill 108 zombified piglins, which we can get with lightning just striking pigs, then we will have enough gold for a golden apple. Except, obviously, that's near impossible. We should just give up, unless there was perhaps a way to guarantee where lightning could strike, which can of course be done with the lightning rod. If you just place 108 pigs around 1 lightning rod and then 1 lightning strike happens, you would be able to do this, as hard as that is to make happen. However, getting a lightning rod requires getting copper, which is impossible because you can't mine that anywhere. Except, wait a minute, if you could just make drowns, then you would be able to get that 1 in 9 copper drop, and so all you'd need to do is kill 27 drowns and you would be able to make a lightning rod. However, making drowns is impossible because there is no water anywhere in this world, unless we were able to craft water somehow, which you can do if you just leave a cauldron out in the rain. If you have a cauldron and if you have a bucket, which is 10 iron ingots in total, you'll be able to make drowns and make lightning rods to make the golden apple that you need to make a village. It's an insane amount of rare chances and effort and perfect weather events lining up, but that's the challenge I'm going to be embarking upon so I can get as many unique items as possible for my Flat World Museum, which will be the end goal of this world. Before I can focus on any of that though, day 2 is all about surviving, which means we have to be killing mobs as well as growing and chopping down trees as fast as they appear up. This is a really concerning point because if we don't get enough saplings from each dark oak tree, which is entirely possible, then the game becomes soft locked and we get no more wood. Fortunately, this didn't happen to us, and even more fortunately during day 2, a zombie actually dropped a potato that's less than a 1% drop chance, which means we now have 2 crops to start growing around with. Feeling pretty good about things. Day 2 is also all going to be spent on getting food and getting wood, the 2 most important resources that we can start getting, and my god do I spend a lot of time doing this. In fact, this 100-day series, I should point out, out is not 100 days in the way most YouTubers do it, which is doing all the way through the day, sleeping at night, and spending 16 hours, because that's what 100 Minecraft days equates to, but this is actually more like 30 hours, which we're going to be happily scrolling through for the sake of showing you things like day 3, where, by the way, using some of these bones, we craft bone meal, which we can use on the grass to get a ton of things, including seeds, which is another crop to grow. We also get flowers, which I immediately realize means that I can upgrade my bed from this inferior white thing I crafted from sheep into the superior and correct red bed. Very happy with that. The world is starting to go my way, and I even start to build a bit of a dark area so that during the day I'll be able to kill some number of zombies and skeletons, because my farms are entirely living on bone meal and my entire future rests on my ability to kill enough zombies, so being able to get a few of them during the day is going to be important. This is also the day in which we realize that pillager patrols will not drop emeralds, only the raids themselves do. The same pillager, this guy, does not drop emeralds unless he is currently raiding a village, which is disappointing, and it means it's a little bit of a setback for my goal of trading with the Wandering Trader. Instead, I realize I'm going to have to do all of the steps I just explained to you. It's daunting, but I'm taking it on. And so for day 4, over an hour in, I decide that I would like to breed pig, and so I need dig, and yeah, I make myself a little pig farm in the ground, solely for the sake of saving hunger on chasing them down. Also, later down the line, this is going to be super useful, but yeah, for now, it's just a pig farm near my spawn. Also, our first Wandering Trader spawns in, and we can't trade with him for about 30 hours, so we have to ignore him and instead do a lot of overnight mob murdering. The rain on day 5 is really good for us because it means we can kill lots more mobs before they burn up. However, now is a great time to mention a survival feature you might not have known about. If you smelt down gold armor, which drops quite a lot from mobs in the world, you can get gold nuggets, which eventually can be used to craft gold ingots, allowing you to potentially skip all of these steps if you were playing a normal survival world. However, because of the fact that we will have no access to cobblestone anywhere in this world, we cannot make a furnace, and so even though we have all of this gold armor, in some cases enchanted, we can do precisely nothing with it. It's sad, but you know what's not sad? Bone mealing the mushroom we got in the bonus chest. Yeah, you thought I wasn't going to mention this? We bone meal it now, and we can make a giant mushroom with a potential food source down the line, if we can get a red one, that is, which we don't have right now. Amazingly, what we do get today, though, after just 90 minutes of playtime, is a iron ingot. That is amazing news, because we are now 1/10 of the way to making a cauldron and bucket and being in the water age. For now, though, we're going to spend day 6 expanding our crop farm, putting some pumpkins down, and we're going to get ready for day 7, which is mostly going to be about continuing the farm and the mob killing grind. However, I take a small break to build a small house to make sure we have a safe space away from the slimes, because my god, are there so many slimes. Slimes only spawn in certain chunks below a certain height level, but you'll notice this entire place is at Y-63, and so this cute little villager house knockoff is going to go well for us, and it's going to give us finally a place to rest our bed that isn't the ground. On day 8, we get some luck, and boy does it help us get unstuck, because Iron Ingot 2 has been obtained, meaning we are now 1/5 of the way to being able to get water. On day 9, we find a pillager raid, and I decide to test to see if they really don't drop emeralds, and I mean, we die, but they also don't drop emeralds, so my point is proven. In fact, in case you're curious, there are going to be a lot of deaths during this because we're so unprotected, and it made me realize quite early on that in a world this flat, and therefore this small, because we're not using so much of it, dying really doesn't matter, and so this is actually our second death so far, despite only being 2.5 hours of gameplay in. Just be warned, the death count is going to get maybe a bit higher when we start to do some building later, but for now, we have a witch to fight. Oh, this is scary. One of the hardest mobs that will naturally spawn besides the Enderman, but we actually kill her and we get redstone dust. This is when I realized that we can make all sorts of weird contraptions with enough witch kills, including for now, the redstone torch. It's the easiest light source we can obtain at the moment, however, it's pretty ineffective. On day 11, it's important to note the value of recycling, because even now, even after all of these hours, we still only have wooden tools, and it's going to be that way for a very long time, and so every single time we get 2 half-broken wooden tools, we combine them together to make a fresh brand new one. The reason this is actually worth doing is because you get a 5% durability bonus, and given the number of places I'm going to need to shovel later, it's just important that I make the most of every wooden tool that I have. Anyway, day 12 is a good opportunity for us to take inventory, first of all explaining why the bottom left of the screen is covered up. This is because this was done in live streams where there's face cam in the bottom left that won't sync up with what I'm saying now. Important to mention. I didn't realize how serious I'd get about this, so as we go on, you see maybe that improves, and so right now all we have is just this lovely underground area where mobs can spawn. It's covered up so that it's always dark in there. Then we have a cow farm that's fenced off around the outside. There's no way to really breed the mobs yet, because I don't have a reliable enough supply of wheat. Then we have this house, which you all know and love, next to a storage area, which I don't even know what I was going for here. I also have my crops area, where I'm ready to expand. I love that every single time we harvest the crops, we get more crops later. And then I have my pig farm, which is buried into the ground, and for some reason a T-shape. And then you can see my spawn post, which clearly has been the target of a few creeper attacks. In fact, day 13 is spent trying to avoid creeper spawning. I can't make torches in any way because we don't have a furnace to make charcoal, and we obviously can't be mining any coal. And so the only way to stop mob spawning is to make each block physically incapable of it. If you don't know, mobs can't spawn on partial blocks. So if we place half slabs or fences or buttons down, it will prevent mobs from spawning. But also, if you just turn the grass into pathway blocks, that will prevent them from spawning too, because this looks like it's a full block, but it's actually 15/16 of a block tall. So day 13 is about surrounding the immediate area in my base of this. On day 14 it rains, but I still spend my time working on this shoveling because I've had one too many bad incidents of slimes, and at this stage in the game I have to eat so much food to recover a slime hit that it just hurts my soul to try and deal with. So I use the next day to make sure that I build some boats, as well as having my pathways, which keep expanding. And this way, if slimes come from outside of the pathed area, I trap them in my boats, and it looks very hilarious, we do have to say. If we're being honest, this is a big project, and it's about to maybe get a bit bigger. But on day 16, we get attacked by this baby zombie that is actually, it's a zombie jockey. It's a baby zombie riding a zombie, and it looks insane. But when we kill the baby zombie jumps onto a spider. Then we kill the spider, and he jumps onto a donkey. A killer donkey attacks us and genuinely does a lot of damage every time he hits. This probably looks fake if you're a Java player, but fun fact, this is a Bedrock feature. Baby zombies can ride pretty much any mob, and it's always very funny to look at. In fact, if you don't know, the reason I started this series is because I want Superflat on the Bedrock version of Minecraft. Sadly, it doesn't exist yet. We only have this flatland world, and I'm trying to make the best of the survival I can. It's just not working so well. And yeah, on day 17, I really get disillusioned with the idea that this is ever going to go anywhere, because I realize that I've got 2 iron ingots after over 4.5 hours of gameplay time. This is just not going to happen to me at the rate that I'm killing zombies. Finding them in the wild enough to be able to kill 120 of them every time I want an ingot, and I need 8 of those ingots, means I need to kill 960 zombies. It's just never going to happen. And so in my mind, I put the series to rest, I give up for a bit, and then, as I'm gone, I keep doing the maths in my head about 960 zombies. Well, if we can just kill 80 a night, then that means we could probably be done in about 4 hours. Realizing how hard it is to kill 80 zombies in a night, however, gets me inspired for day 18, because I decide I'm going to need a mob farm. This is something I've never built in Minecraft before, let alone ever had to try and build solely out of dirt and wood, but this is something I decide to do. So step 1 for this is to make sure that no other mobs can spawn besides in one specific area, which is going to be the mob farm. Even with the lowest simulation distance Minecraft has, which is 4 chunks, this means you need to dig an 8 chunk by 8 chunk area. A chunk is 16 blocks, in case you're curious across, which means that is 128 squared blocks. 16,384 blocks need to be turned into pathways. And so day 18 is spent doing precisely that. Day 19 is spent continuing. Day 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, and do you get the point that it's a lot of blocks I have to shovel at this stage? In fact, a wooden shovel has 59 durability, which means we need 277.6 shovels just to shovel out this area so that we can start to build a mob farm in the center. And so I also am going to be spending a lot of this time chopping down wood and making sure that I can get all of the sticks and planks required for that many shovels. But the progress is at least inspiring, because as you can see, by day 25, I've actually now built my platforms out of dirt. The idea being we build dirt platforms for mobs to spawn on, and then we place trapdoors on the side. Trapdoors are seen by mobs as a full block, so they try to walk in there, and then they'll fall 22 blocks so that they're ready to be killed with just a single punch or 2, or in some cases 3. But the key point here is to mention that's what we're doing. And so now what we have to do to make sure the farm can run 24 hours a day is build a big roof on top of it so that it's always dark under there. And so my plan for the roof is to build a big kind of pyramid structure, you know, kind of an arched roof into the center. And we have to build it out of solid blocks to make sure that no light can get through, but we also need to make sure mobs can't spawn up there, which means we need to have partial blocks. And in this case, I went with slabs, meaning we have a 1.5 block thick roof above all of this. It's a lot of wood that we're planting and chopping down, and you can see the scale of this project from this angle, I think, where you can just see how much work we have to do on the shoveling still, and how much wood we have to place, but that is the goal of day 26 and day 27 and day 28, and honestly, I'm really pleased with the progress that starts to appear here. Even my staircase is made from transparent blocks to make sure that nothing can spawn there, and yeah, I start to realize that actually getting those 900 zombies killed might be more in sight than we had previously thought. So day 29 is all about continuing the pathway placing and the mob spawning platforms. We decide we can actually go multiple layers up on these platforms because they'll just fall down to another layer, and so given how many hours I'm putting into building this, it makes sense to me that I should make sure there's as many spawn points as possible to make the actual grinding part better. Also, in case you're curious about what I do on the next day, I did something which I really enjoy and I wanted to mention, because I took as many shovels as I could down to where they were basically dead, and I combined them together so that I could get one full shovel from all of the tiny ones. It took literally 11 different shovels, but as you can see, wow, that's a fully repaired shovel that actually was not worth wasting the time on crafting when I could have just chopped down a piece of wood. But still, I just wanted to share with you that sometimes you can have fun even when working on a mega project. But the mega project is going well, as day 30 will tell you. It is very surreal to me that the thing that got me to make a mob farm for the first time ever was the fact that it is literally necessary for progression. If you are going to build, if you're going to try this challenge, you're going to need this mob farm at some point, because the number of iron ingots you need is just too much to leave to random chance. After lamenting that for a little bit, I actually realized that I have enough carrots that I can start using them as my major food source, but I have a dilemma. Should I eat the carrots myself to save me spending time killing mobs or eating rotten flesh, or should I feed the carrots to the pigs? It's a hard decision to make. I don't know how I'm going to do it, but I do know that I'm going to spend day 31 just using shovels. At this point, I have a full inventory of them. I am committed to getting the absolute maximum amount of pathways placed. On day 32, I make IBX toy drink, which apparently involves soy sauce and Fanta. Yeah, you're probably better off if you don't ask questions about that, but do you know what day 33 and 34 and 35 and 36 involve? That's right, shovel, 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 shovel. And on day 37, I finally decide to test the mob farm after all of this work. It took 20 Minecraft days, but we finally have a functional mob farm. And the crazy thing about it is, even after all of this work, it still has the issue of not being able to discriminate between mobs, creepers versus zombies, etc. We have no way of funneling them together because we have no water, and also we have to kill the mobs manually because that's the only way we have a chance of getting an iron drop. However, even though the farm works right now, I think it's best to do the big grind after we have some efficiency up, and so to do that, we make more of the spaces around it unspawnable, which obviously we do by chopping down a tree, so that we can make shovels, so that we can pathway the ground. We need so many of these shovels, but at least now the end is in sight. There's just this small patch and this slightly thicker patch, and then the entire thing is shoveled. It's really good news that we of course work on, and on day 39 I do something a bit more fun as a new way to get to the top of the mob farm, because if you bounce a ton and then get in a boat that is also on slime blocks, for some reason it does this, which I can use to get to the very top because it conveniently lines up. And so yeah, I really enjoy this, but day 39 comes to an end and day 40 arrives, which is when I decide if I put all of these hours into building this farm, I might as well max it out before we start the grind. And so I do decide to build the inside of the checkerboard pattern up a tiny bit more, because I realize that as many layers up as you want to go, it will technically work. Even if a mob has to fall down one floor to another floor to another floor, it will still technically work. And so that's what I did right there, while also extending the pathway block area for day 41. And on day 42, do you know what finally happened? We got our third iron ingot. We are so far into this, but now we can finally craft ourselves an iron bucket should we want to. With that said, on day 43, we don't craft a bucket because I want to get myself a cauldron first, because I not only need a cauldron, but I also need to wait for rainy weather before I can do anything with it. So it's important I craft the cauldron first and the bucket second, even though that means I have to forego buckets of milk. But right now, I'm still eating rotten flesh, even as day 44 rolls around. So maybe, you know, we can't have this moral high ground about wanting buckets of milk. Although actually, the bucket of milk would probably help with the rotten flesh more than anything. Today, I came up with a clever way to stop spiders, because I figure if I turn the middle dirt block in each of these checkerboard patterns into a pathway, then nothing that is wider than 1 by 2 will be able to spawn. I mean, obviously, there's some issues with that. Also, have you noticed the zombie kill counter on screen? Because at the end of day 45, funnily enough, I had 45 zombies killed. Why does it say out of 600 though? That's because I had 2 iron ingots when I came up with that, so I needed 5 more to make a cauldron, and there is a 1 in 120 chance of a zombie dropping an iron ingot, meaning I don't need to, on average, kill 600 zombies, and I figured, you know what, if we're doing that many, we need to keep track of it so we can see our average luck, and yeah, things went pretty pleasant on that, I'd say, as you'll find out after day 46, because on day 46 I killed a witch that was trying to drink a health potion, and so she dropped the very same health potion, meaning I now have a potion that I can only really use to recover health, but still, I'm getting more protected from everything else, which is great news because on day 47 I used that protection and the feeling of strength that it gives me to get my 4th iron ingot. It is amazing when you look at the luck that was required to get here, because if it's a 1 in 120 chance, getting 2 iron ingots in the first 77 zombie kills, that is something that I was just amazed by. I was hoping that maybe we'd miscalculated the luck or something and this was going to keep continuing. Again, I maybe was a little bit too optimistic on that one, because day 48 rolls around and no iron. Day 49 rolls around and no iron. In fact, we spend a lot of time punching mobs, which includes mobs we don't really care about but can cause some real havoc, like creepers, by the way. But this is just the natural thing we have to do for now, because, by the way, day 50 has arrived, and that means we are officially halfway there to the 100 days that represent the beginning of this challenge, because this has to be the only world type where you can flat out play Minecraft for 100 days, and you're doing lucky if you have any amount of gold lying around, and indeed, if you're not using wooden tools, that would be the weird exception. But I digress, halfway there, very excited. But you know what else is exciting? On day 51, the fact that we got iron ingot 5 out of 10. This is some truly amazing progress that we were starting to make. On day 52, I have an embarrassing full damage based mistake that shows just how effective this farm is for killing mobs, and on day 53, the same thing almost happens to me because a baby zombie comes right at me wearing full gold armor, but fortunately he thinks the trapdoor is a full block and he falls down. It's a dangerous situation, but we don't need to think about it too much because of the joy of day 54. Look at this. We finished the massive 128 by 128 pathway block area. There are now no mobs spawning anywhere besides that one central place. It's so beautiful to finish a mega project, but it's even better when you did it solely with wooden shovels, and I spend the rest of day 54 killing mobs, and it's really great because on day 55 I managed to get iron ingot number 6 out of 10. I'm now just 1 iron ingot away from a cauldron, and speaking of cauldrons, do you know who likes to fill those up? Witches. The witch is actually really kind and she offers me a potion, but she throws it at my head and so I die. And on day 57 we do a lot more mob grinding, this time getting a music disc because all of the mobs are on such low health. All it takes is a creeper getting between me and a skeleton and he will instantly die. It turns out I've accidentally created a music disc farming machine, which is a tragedy because I'm never going to be able to create a jukebox, but it's a nice idea. Thank you for the thought, Minecraft. And so on day 58 I actually have a pretty good thought myself, and this is that given that slabs don't reduce the full damage for mobs by any amount, why don't we slab up the bottom of the mob farm so that no mobs spawn there naturally? This is important so that we can make sure all the mobs that are spawning are ones that fall down here and take all of that damage, and I think the end result is also just a little bit nicer looking than what I had before. On day 59 I decide, you know what, rather than waiting for that 7th iron ingot, why don't I see what I can craft? I could make myself 3 iron doors, 16 iron bars, or 2 iron pickaxes, or if I really want to go crazy, I could make 3 smithing tables for all that netherite gear I'm going to be crafting later, but I decide against it and instead get back to the mob grinding machine. These are full 20-minute days of just punching every mob that comes down, and the only fortunate thing is that on day 61, we finally get iron ingot number 7 out of 10. We have enough for the cauldron, and you know what the amazing thing is, despite the fact that this is a 1 in 120 chance, it only takes another 9 seconds for me to get this 8th iron ingot, meaning I'm now 80% of the way there, and to celebrate, I decide to craft my cauldron and place it down, knowing that the moment rain comes, it will fill up the cauldron, and I'll be able to take the rain from said cauldron to put it in a bucket. It really is intense, the fact that even with just a bucket, you can't get rain here, but I'm feeling good about things as day 62 comes to a close, and for the first time I start to feel like maybe this is actually going to happen to me. This isn't abstract concepts and vaguely definable goals. This is now actually starting to happen, which, amazingly enough, it happens again on day 62 with our 9th iron ingot, and then on day 63 we get our 10th iron ingot. These 1 in 120 chances happen 4 times in the space of just 3 Minecraft days, and boy am I excited about that. And even more excitement moment comes later this day because rain finally comes, and that means the cauldron is going to fill up. But now it's time to get tactical. Hear me out here. If you have 2 water sources, you effectively have infinite water. But right now we have 1 cauldron, which is going to fill us up 1 bucket. So we need to be quite tactical about this. And I think, what if we use some of those potion bottles we got from the witches that didn't kill us, and we fill those up from the water source that we placed down on the ground? If we did that, we'd be able to place those back in the cauldron, meaning we could then get a second water source. And like I said earlier, 2 water sources is effectively infinite water because of Minecraft water mechanics that no one understands, but everyone can appreciate the joy of having this much water, which we can immediately use on day 64 to make ourselves a lovely fishing pond. By the way, congratulations me on a stack of days. That's right, we're 64 days in now, and I'm really enjoying this new little fishing pond that I've made right next to my previous pig pen area, because this allows me to fish for a source of food that doesn't need to be shared with my livestock. This means that I can finally focus on breeding those pigs, which it's very, very important, by the way, but importantly, it also means that we can start to fish for all sorts of other items that we're looking for. Day 65 comes and we're thrown a bit of a curveball, because instead of getting exciting items, we get a creeper blowing up our farms and our chests, which is a little frustrating, but I just take it as a reminder of how I need to extend the pathway area even more, and so I use day 66 to make sure that there is nowhere around my base that mobs can spawn and walk over while I'm not looking. And in fact, on day 67, I take this a step further and I dig a big trench around the base. It's 3 blocks wide, it's 3 blocks deep, and it's bedrock at the bottom, so mobs can't spawn in the trench, mobs can't walk over the trench, and so I'm safe from everything, and so I can get back to the important things in life, which in this case includes fishing. By the way, I fished up a flame bow, which means I'm now able to officially get cooked meat for the first time in the playthrough. Do you get this? You eat the meat and it restores 4 whole hunger shanks, and you don't even get hungry like 15 seconds later. It is amazing. I am starting to live the good life now, and now that I'm the Minecraft version of wealthy, I decide I need to flex this with some nice, terrain building, and so I take an area that I'd previously tried to use to cover in slabs before realizing that covering a giant 64 by 64 area in slabs is a dumb idea, and I decide to use this as the edge for a lake, and so I take what used to be 1 cauldron full of water and I make it somehow fit into a 64 by 64 lake, which is of course all sources because we use the diagonal filling method, which is of course very important as always, and now we have a lovely lake from which we can fish whenever we want. Before I can live out my fishy fantasies though, 69 day rolls around, and this is a nice day, let me tell you, because of the fact that we are going to start farming a large quantity of carrots. We want so many carrots that we can breed a number of pigs that is going to cause us issues, and I really do mean that, by the way, and so I start to make this area into a mega farmland, partially so we get more carrots, but also partially to prevent mobs from spawning there, because I'm still bitter about that creeper explosion, and I also use this day to make sure that I can make a zombie drowning area that will force zombies to the bottom for so long that they drown, which conveniently enough turns them into a mob which drops copper ingots. So the way this works is we have a 3 deep water source, which is pushing mobs down because it's not all sources besides at the very top, and we cover it in trapdoors, which for some reason all mobs think are real blocks, and if we open those trapdoors, it's a little opening that zombies will follow to get to me, as you can see right here, and just after a few minutes of trying this, we already get our first of the 3 copper ingots that we need. It's a very successful day 69, but not as successful as day 70, where I decide to use my newfound water to properly hydrate my new farm area. This is much nicer than the old one, just for the fact that we don't have to worry about things stepping on here, we don't have to worry about the crops getting undone when we punch them. Everything is going to stay exactly where it is because it's perfectly filled with water in the 8x8 pattern. Speaking of 8x8 patterns, you know, a pattern that no one can understand is how thunderstorms work. I had a slightly incorrect understanding of them, and I didn't realize that sleeping was going to slightly lower my odds of one happening, so from day 71 onwards, we don't sleep at all, but that means we're going to start to run the risk of phantoms later, but that's not my concern on day 72, because I finally have 3 out of 3 copper ingots that I need. I'm able to craft a lightning rod, which means if thunder strikes, which might take a while, we don't know how long, it could be tomorrow, it could be many, many days from now, but if lightning strikes, we can guarantee that it will strike at least some of our pigs. In fact, I specifically decide to build a little lightning chamber for those same pigs, and I put a couple of lightning rods in there, guaranteeing that if lightning strikes, every single one of the pigs in this area will turn into a piglin. In fact, I leave this pig chamber very separate, and I make sure to breed as many pigs as I can every single day. I need to have dozens of pigs being struck by lightning, and that is my big goal at this point in the game, breeding the pigs, feeding the pigs, making them happy, and in case you're curious as to why we want pigs struck by lightning, it's because they turn into zombie piglins. Zombie piglins have a 1 in 40 chance of dropping one of these, and a 1 in 2 chance of dropping one of these. This means that if we combine the averages of those two drops together, every 108 zombie piglins we kill, give or take, will give us about 8 gold, which is enough to craft a golden apple and to make that famed village from. So that is why we are going extra serious with getting the pigs here. Even as my frame rate starts to lower when I look at it, it is very important. Speaking of things that are important, on day 74, our farm is growing. Pun intended. Day 75 is when we extend the trench even more because I noticed a big slimer jumped over it, and yeah, at this point I'm starting to realize that we should just shovel even more areas, but no, I want to have a specific area that is not slimed up because we might need that later for finding witches and zombie villagers, and so I just make a bigger trench, guaranteeing that nothing can jump over, and then what I also do is I segregate pigs on day 76 to make sure there are enough backup pigs that we can breed them and get them back up to healthy numbers, just in case something bad happens with the very large number we have in this small space, including a lightning strike that goes one too many. Speaking of one too many lightning strikes, I had a very bad day on day 77 because I tried to expand the cow farm, but I figured I could break the fences as I was placing them to save having to craft too many, and who let the cows out, let me just say. I guess definitely me. On day 78 though, things are exciting until another creeper explosion, which blows a hole in the side of a lake. How can you blow a hole in the lake, you might say? This creeper finds a way, and it's frustrating, but I double down on my attempts to make sure no mobs spawn. In a world like this, you don't have natural barriers between you and the mobs. We don't have light sources to stop them spawning in the first place, and so the best we can do is this very large form of segregation. And you know what? I guess that's the theme of this world to some extent. Speaking of the theme of this world, day 79, fishing. Yeah, we go fishing, and we even make a little tower so we can go fishing without being attacked by anything that comes over here. And I go fishing, and then I do more fishing, and then after I've done fishing, I fish a bit more. Yeah, so I go fishing for some time, I think it goes without saying. This is the joy of the world. I'm now able to just create food out of thin air. I'm able to potentially get my hand on some name tags and some saddles, as I indeed do. And it's just cool to know that there is a small chance of getting enchanted rods, enchanted bows, enchanted books even. And all of those things do start to happen when we fish a bow that has both mending and flame. Now we can make a sustainable source of cooked meat, which means all of these salmon and cods are fine, but now we're moving on to the big boy stuff, cooked beef and cooked pork chops. I make a few cooked pork chops before realizing, wait a minute, I need all of these pigs quite desperately, and then I switch to exclusively cooked beef, and in fact, I have just the right farm to make as much of that as I do want. On day 81, I wax philosophically. If you're not bankrupting those you love, then what's even the point of living? And on day 82, I look at the list of villager workstations and wonder which of these we should be making. The villager is within sight now, and so it's important to get the trades right, so we can make a smithing table, we can make a barrel, but we can't make a smoker, or a cartography table, or a fletching table, a grindstone, or a lectern, and so it significantly limits the types of villagers that we can make. Later on down the line, we can of course trade with wandering traders, and maybe that's something we can do, but for now we have to think between the smithing table, the barrel, or the composter, and that's something we're going to think about more as time goes on. On day 83, I feel like I hear a pillager. I'm not sure if it's just the pigs sound slightly like one or not, because you know, all pillagers are pigs, coming out and saying it right now. Although while I'm on the subject of pigs, I should mention on day 84, I got the pigs nice and thick for the lightning storm that we know must be coming. It's been over 10 Minecraft days since we haven't slept, but we're feeling like, okay, we can wait. And as day 85 comes in, I do precisely that. I wait in the way that I know best, which is to live, laugh, love, and to fish, farm, feed. And so I do precisely those three things on day 85, and day 86, and day 87. Okay, on day 87, I decided if I'm going to spend so much time fishing, I'd better make sure the lake is just a little bit more enjoyable to look at, and so I did some landscaping. Ooh, look how beautiful it looks now. Did you know you can bone meal blocks that are underwater to get some coral? I certainly knew that, I can say definitely. And on day 88, we get some action because it starts to rain. I'm excited. I know thunder could be coming any second now, and it doesn't, so that was real smart of me. And then on day 89, I got an enchanted book that just has the curse of binding on, which just isn't very helpful, but thank you for trying, Minecraft. And for day 90, I decided to do a bit of exploration on a horse that I've now tamed using my fresh new saddle. Do you want to see what's around the world? As you can see, over here, the world is flat and green and made of grass blocks. And if we go in this direction, it's flat and it's green and it's made of grass blocks. And over here, it's flat and it's green and it's made of grass blocks. This is truly the most boring Minecraft world to go in. There is no exploration factor. We are solely working on making things from other things. And yeah, I learned something that you probably didn't know before, which is that super flat worlds are actually incredibly flat. Who would have guessed? And so on day 91, we get more rain, and so I know that it's over now. We've gone through so many courses of rain without getting lightning yet, and it must be happening, except it doesn't. The rain stops on day 92. However, I am excited by a brand new enchanted book I get, because it reminds me that you've always got to wear protection when you can. If you want to avoid fiery pains, just make sure to put protection on. Speaking of things you've got to make sure you do, day 93 is an important one because I realize I'm in the preview, and so that means that I can make mud and then mud bricks, which is entirely needless, but it's just a cool feature that I've had access to this whole time without realizing. In case you're curious as to why I'm playing the preview, it's because they're, right now, if you try to make a flat world with survival, it forces achievements off as if you're playing creative anyway. However, there was a beta where that wasn't true. Speaking of places where things aren't true, you might think you know me, but actually, I've been lying this whole time. I've been saying, hello, I'm IBX Toycat. Really, it's hello, I'm IBX Toycat. Okay, that's all I really do on this 94 day. I also try to find a better horse though, which is important. And on day 95, I do everyone's favorite thing and sort out the cluttered chests. I have so many chests full of things that I'm not sure I'm ever going to need at this point, but because this is such a limited world, I just don't feel good throwing anything away. So I sort them out, and on day 96, after I've sorted them, I reward myself by becoming a giraffe, which... Yeah, that was a good use of time. On day 97, though, it finally rains, and you know how close we are to 100 days, what this rain means, because in no time whatsoever, day 98 comes, and the rain goes away, funnily enough. We had rain, we had the chance for a thunderstorm, and it's gone. We have no access, therefore, to zombie piglins, and so no gold, and so no villagers. I'm pretty depressed. In fact, on day 99, I decide to ride a donkey, which immediately I lose and then find again. And I also murder my cows without replanting them. That's how serious things have got. But you know what? Day 100 is here. The progress is happening because, as you can see, I'm building this staircase to build height. And then what happens is nothing. Although there's a pretty nice view from up here at Y-6. And also, in case you thought things couldn't get worse with the lack of lightning, phantoms start to appear for some reason, stopping me from digging a trench that I was trying to make. And so I decide, this is too much. It's all over now. This is the end of the 100 days. Thank you for joining me. I'm not going to be getting a villager anytime soon. Except, actually, you know what? This is a 100-day video, but I'm committed to what I'm doing here. So day 101, day 102, day 103, day 104, and you know what happens on day 105? Lightning finally comes. It's a little bit of a surprise, but I finally have so many piglins, and oh my god, this is something that is hard for me to explain after the fact, but look how many piglins I have that I now have to kill, knowing that the way piglins work is once you punch one, the rest of them will come after you. This is a serious problem I have, while also trying to think to myself, I didn't breed enough pigs. I wanted to breed more before the lightning came, which means I'm now dealing with incredibly low frame rates because there's so many mobs on screen, but also trying to move pigs near the lightning rods in case more lightning strikes to get more of those, because I want to make sure that I have enough gold for 2 golden apples now. I think that that's entirely possible, and all we're going to need to get is 16 gold ingots. So what I do is I let the zombie piglins out of their hole, hoping that that would help with the frame rate. It does not. And once I've let them out of the hole and I've tried to get pigs in there, very unsuccessfully, I decide that I'm going to make a hole in this wall and I'm going to punch the piglins, and I'm going to do it in such a way that they can't get to me, but I can hurt them. There's a slight flaw in my plan though, and that is the frame rate is so low that it is taking me seconds to kill every single piglin. This wouldn't be an issue in normal times, however, do consider that drops from a mob will despawn after 5 minutes, which means that I will lose all of the drops I've gotten so far if I can't get in there to pick up the mob drops. This is a really terrifying thought to me, and so I just decide it's worth dying, giving up my own life so that I can save the gold, and I do precisely that. I die so quickly in a way that doesn't even make sense when you look back at it. Like, it seems as though I get hit multiple times a second, but it's not a big deal. I die, and this means all the zombie piglins de-aggro. I can pick up the gold. I store the gold swords in the donkey. He's really showing his usefulness right now, and then I decide to get right back to murdering piglins, and do you know what? After killing them all, I officially have enough for a golden apple, and I think I have enough for 2 golden apples, but once I combine them together, the most depressing thing in the world hits me, because to make 2 golden apples, I'd need 16 gold ingots. I have 15 gold ingots and 8 gold nuggets. I am 1 gold nugget away from a second golden apple, which is such a big deal because 2 villagers can breed, but sadly there is no asexual reproduction in villages yet, which means that because I got 1 fewer zombie piglin than I liked, in fact I might have lost his 1 gold nugget on the ground, if I had just been a very tiny bit luckier anywhere in that process, I would be able to save myself so much pain, but now I realize that I'm going to need to get lightning to come again before I can breed villagers. However, that's not going to stop me from being able to farm with a single villager, and so I decide I need to finally do the big maneuver that this whole run is predicated on. I need to find a zombie villager, I need to find a witch, I need to get the witch to throw a weakness potion at the zombie villager, and then I need to give him a golden apple, all without dying, all without the zombie dying, and all without that all going crazy. And let's just say that my first attempt goes poorly. My second attempt, I build a lovely little drive-through window for the witch to sit in while I can sit with my zombie outside. However, the witch despawns because of reasons I'm not so sure of, and so I'm left to try again. I go to my mob farm thinking, oh yeah, sometimes I would have witches and zombie villagers at the same time, and in no time at all I do get both of those mobs, but I just can't manage to get it to go off successfully because so many other mobs are spawning. This makes me realize that I'm going to need to trap a witch and then separately go somewhere else and trap a zombie, and I think I've finally done it. I've got my witch trapped below a tree, I've got a zombie villager trapped in my trench, and as I try to lift him up from his boat, the witch is despawned again. Now I'm realizing that if you go any more than 16 or 32 blocks for no good reason whatsoever, these witches are despawning, and that means I have to be even more careful of what I do, and so I bring a zombie villager inwards into my big pathland where I know no mobs are going to spawn around him and cause him issues, and then I look for a witch. This is a pretty rare spawn chance, but fortunately, after no time whatsoever, one spawns in. Then I build a roof above them because I need to make sure that if daytime comes, my villager, who is desperately being converted right now, who's no doubt going to be poisoned and have all sorts of things thrown at him, I want to make sure that he can survive anything that happens here, and so I build a roof above him, I build boats for him and the witch, and it looks like this when we're done, and now we're just 1 splash potion of weakness away from either wasting my golden apple and having to wait for more lightning, or having my first ever villager, which will enable emeralds, which will enable all sorts of other crazy things that are going to happen. Can we do it? It looks like it's not going to happen. I get poisoned and harmed so many times. I'm so aware in these moments that if I die, I'll respawn far enough away that the witch will immediately despawn, but I keep on trying. I look up the rules and I realize that I have to be within 3 blocks of the witch, but she's just not throwing weakness potions at me. She just keeps throwing poison after poison after poison after harming, and then eventually this happens. She throws a potion of weakness. I immediately throw my golden apple onto the villager, and once I see that works, I know he's healing, and now I need to murder this witch as fast as possible. And now we wait and we see, will we really have a villager by morning? This is the most tense few minutes of my life, but as you can see, the end result is a cleric villager. He actually starts with a profession that I can never get naturally because I'll never find a brewing stand. And now all we have to decide is, are we going to rechange his profession? Are we going to leave him as a cleric? Or are we going to make sure that he becomes something more useful to me? I actually decide to go with the second option because if we made a cleric, we'd be able to trade for glowstone, we'd be able to get some lapis and some other things we otherwise can't get. However, right now, until I get a second villager, I need to farm as many emeralds as I can from this guy, and I'm going to use them at the Wandering Trader. Just as a little sneak peek, as the first thing that I decided to buy, I got myself an acacia sapling, and I also got, quite nicely, some buckets filled with fish. So I've got Stripey, and my other fish, he's not stripy, and I've also got 2 spare buckets now. I am living the good life. I've got emeralds that can build up from the things that I farm farm on the ground. I've got the ability to slowly trade for the bits of nature that I'm missing, and now we can start to take the Superflat to the next level. This has been one of the most fun challenges so far, and in fact it's so fun, I'm not going to do the YouTube thing of like, do you want me to do another episode of this? I'm going to be spending much more time on this world because I am enjoying it so much. It is such a fun challenge, and it's so punishing when it goes wrong, but it's so rewarding when it goes well. Hello, I'm X Toycat, and in my first 108 days of the Flat World Challenge with no terrain, no structures, just a bonus chest, I took the world from looking like this to looking more like this. We made significant improvements, and it was all built on the backs of killing enough zombies, hundreds of zombies, so we could get their rare iron drop 7 times to make a cauldron, then using the water that rained into the cauldron to turn those same zombies into drowns. Those drowns then dropped copper, which I could craft into a lightning rod. Placing that lightning rod near pigs meant that I would get zombified piglins, and killing enough of those piglins meant that I got gold to make a golden apple, which meant I officially had a villager. This opens up all sorts of trades from the wandering trader, but it also makes iron farms possible, and so there are lots of points of progress we can make. And rather than doing the standard thing and giving you 100 days of progress, I figured 256 was a more fitting day number to get to, and so that is where we are right now. Look at what happened. On day 109, we were doing just fine because I traded with our new villager, which gave me the emeralds that I needed to get acacia saplings. This meant I finally had more than one type of wood, which was really good, and then on day 110 it got better again because I got another iron ingot despite not going for it, and I also decided to clear some space for the new village, which was going to be built around this single villager and his soon-to-be friend. I'm still so bitter about the fact that I needed 2 golden apples or 16 gold ingots, and I ended up with 15 ingots and 8 nuggets, but there's nothing I can do about that right now, so I'm just going to prepare for the village and wait for thunder. And while I'm doing a little bit of that waiting, I figure why don't we use some of the creepers which are spawning to clear out an area. I think going down to Bedrock is a really fun way to stop mob spawning, and it also adds a significant barrier between the village and any perhaps ghouls that might want to spawn and cause them harm. This, of course, entirely different to my pig farm, which I get going on day 111. I also made a drive-through with a pig and a llama. Okay, you know, I prepared this for witches, but it never really worked, and I kind of like that there's just a little restaurant working over here. Make a sign and name the restaurant Pig Donald's and Llama. See, Pig Donald's, you almost had something going there. When you add the llama, I feel like you dilute the quality of that joke a little bit too much. On day 112, we treat ourselves to an oak tree, in fact several oak trees, and I know that if I grow these trees around flowers, eventually a beehive will spawn, and it does. Aha! Beehive! And after a couple of flowers, I officially have a baby bee. This is adorable, and it's going to be useful for helping the crops grow, because that's going to be useful for getting those emeralds in, which I obviously do a lot of trading through these days, while also using day 113 to make some new villager houses. I decided to use mud for the floor because I obviously had mud blocks. If you're curious as to why, it's because I played this on the preview. It's the only way to make a flat world in survival during one of the weird betas, and it just so turns out that I also get access to mud, and maybe, if you're lucky with the Wandering Trader, some mangrove too. Obviously, none of that's going to spawn naturally in this world, but you know what does spawn naturally in this world? Pigs. We keep on breeding them every single day because we need as many of these to be hit by lightning as possible. I only need 1 gold nugget, but I'd really like to get more than 1 villager converted and some extra gold for some fun projects, so I feel like this is an important thing. Just like how I feel like it's important to buy every weird item I can from the Wandering Trader, and so on day 114 he comes over with some podzol, and I purchase it so I can add it to my museum, which will house every single block we can obtain in Superflat later down the line, obviously after day 115, and this is a day that makes me not want to be alive because phantoms start to attack us, and a creeper blows up our Acacia Village house. No! Fortunately though, this is the day I open the locator map and we get to see the world from above, although it's a pretty poor angle. On day 117, I continue as I have been, building the pathway and the villager huts, which will eventually house a little community of villagers who all give me things in exchange for money. Don't worry, it's not slavery, even though they're going to be contained in these little huts, because they're going to be willingly participating in economic labor. And speaking of economic labor, on day 118, I take the biggest form of labor I can, which is building a staircase staircase going all the way up to heaven. However, I do happen to fall off it because I was a little bit uncoordinated, and so I die, losing my bow, which had a curse of vanishing on, and this was such a silly, avoidable death. But I want to share with you the deaths of this because there's so many of them, but it's totally fine. In a flat world, dying is fine as long as you're moving forwards on the progress, like we do on day 119, because I do manage to get a mangrove propagule from the Wandering Trader, which means now I can start building with mangrove wood for the first time ever, just because of the weird circumstances of this technically being a 1.19 preview world. Again, not intentional, not what I was going for, but very fun anyway, which brings us on to the next day. I decided to go fishing for some new favorite bows, and while I did so, the mangrove tree grows, which is exciting. The unexciting thing about today is that I got a bow with nothing but a curse of vanishing on, as if to taunt me for my previous death, and so I take this into account when I continue my staircase up a lot more carefully than I did before. So on day 121, I have some fun making a trench, with the idea being I need Enderman to pick up a grass block so that I can have it for my museum, because my museum is really important. So important, in fact, that in between all of the placing mud and pathways of the next day, I decide to murder a Wandering Trader, knowing that another one will spawn slightly sooner, and that we'll be able to get new blocks and new options which are previously inaccessible. On day 123, I fix a problem that was caused by me, and my god, is this a big one, but I took care of the pigs by the end of it, which is why on day 124, I could finally start a mega project. This is my favorite part of the Minecraft survival experience, when you have a ton of blocks and you can start using them in silly ways, and I decide this world is awfully flat and it needs some trees, and that is something that I can fix by planting all of these dirt blocks in the ground. Today, also, a creeper exploded and not only killed me, but also freed our only villager that I'm trying to protect so hard, and so day 125, I desperately race to put him back in his place, and I also, luckily enough, buy some dripstone from the Wandering Trader alongside some coral, making the world feel just a little bit more alive every single day, including with these dirt trees, by the way. And day 126 is all about continuing that fix for the flat terrain, that is, by building more dirt trees until lightning strikes, and my god, is this exciting, because I'm finally going to be able to get that final nugget. However, a few minutes into killing zombie piglins, I notice that the lightning has been destroying all of our loot, because of course, if it is striking in a wide enough area to turn pigs into piglins, it's going to be striking in a wide enough area to turn piglin loot into nothing, and so we got very few gold nuggets for something we've been waiting so long for, but that's totally fine, because we are going to use the little gold we have, just the extra gold nugget, to make a second golden apple. And so after trying to improve the lightning chamber so that next time round I'm not going to lose as much loot, I decide to go and start the process of converting a zombie villager into a villager. This is going to take me no time at all, I say on day 127, and then on day 128 I make a few dirt trees and look for zombie villagers and find not a single one. Seriously, a whole 20-minute real world, one Minecraft day, I found 0 zombie villagers. What are the odds? They're not that rare if a mob spawn. However, on day 129 I build some more dirt trees and I trade with the Wandering Trader to get another tropical fish. I decide to name these ones Slodgy and Pixel. I'm very good at naming mobs here. And I also kill a pillager patrol, which means I accidentally started a raid. However, at least I did find a zombie villager tonight, and so I put him in a boat, and although there is a raid going on, which is very scary, everything else is going very well. And so what I do is, oh no, day 130, the zombie villager actually burnt. Luckily, that night I do get a zombie villager, and then he gets blown up by a creeper. No! Creeper! And then later that night, I get a witch together, and the witch kills me too. This is not my day. This is getting me very frustrated because all of the things I keep putting together despawn. So on day 31, I do something you're probably not used to, and I actually sort out some chests, while also getting some high quality cooked pork chops with the fire aspect sword. And then on day 132, I get something cold and blue. That's right, it's blue ice. I can only buy up to 6 of this, so I'm not going to be making any blue ice pathways anytime soon, but it's still so cool to get an item that is otherwise so unobtainable in this world, as the stairway to heaven will eventually prove. But in the meantime, I need to cure this zombie villager, and so I continue to try and I continue to fail. On day 133, fortunately I have a breakthrough because I get a witch in a boat and everything's wonderful until a creeper blows up and everything despawns again. On day 134, you can see this issue at its finest. Look at the 5 zombies and the creeper surrounding the zombie villager. They know that I only want this guy. Fortunately, I managed to outplay this and I managed to make this all work, but still no success. On day 135, we get the witch again, and the witch is killed by a spider in the boat. This is where I started to get not just a little, like frustrated, but I'm getting actively angry at Minecraft mechanics. Like, why would a witch start a fight with a spider? But she does. On day 136, we have to hunt for a witch again. Seriously, I cannot explain to you how long it's been since I got this gold and how many nights I've spent trying at this. This is driving me crazy, but on day 137, I have a witch and a zombie villager in a boat close enough together that I can stand between them and pray that the witch doesn't kill me. And you know what happens? On day 138, we finally cure a villager, bringing our total villager count up to 2. Do you know what the amazing thing about 2 is, especially in Minecraft, is on day 139, we can use this to create a brothel, a breeding house. And the breeding house is going to be where we get all the baby villagers from. And we also decide now is finally the moment where I should finish off this raid. And it's a little bit scary, but I do get some iron swords as loot. And then there's a ravager that spawns and it looks a little worrying, but as you can see, I've got this. On day 140, I realized the villagers have managed to make a baby, even though it's a raid and they're so distressed. I guess they're so panicked that they have to make a child right now. And on day 141, I beat the raid. I get to see the fireworks for the first time on Bedrock, surprisingly, and I get a totem of undying, meaning the next time I'm about to die, I'm actually not going to. This is really positive news, and it's a great development that brings us nicely into day 142, where now we have a post-raid village. They're very happy. Not only have these guys both been cured from zombies, but they've also both just experienced me defeating a raid, so they're both quite grateful, and I use this to expand the village, get some more houses in there for their babies, and I also decide to make a blacksmith table, which means I can get stone shovels now. That's right, we've moved up in the world from wooden tools. I now have a renewable source of stone shovels. In fact, not just a few stone shovels, so many stone shovels. As you'll see on day 144, we just have too many of these things at this point, but this is required for us to get the experience out of the blacksmith, because it's not like I'm going to be trading him my iron at 4 iron for an emerald. I don't think that's a worthwhile trade right now. And so yeah, at this point, I basically have to value trade as many of the villagers as I can, knowing that I can't have many of the resources they'd like me to trade with them. But yeah, things are great. Speaking of great, by the way, day 145, the very best example of greatness is a cat. There's a cat that spawns in, and we get to tame it, and this is my new friend, Bark. It's a good name for a cat, I know. I also make a lectern, which will be useful for getting some enchantments later, and I also make a fisherman villager using a barrel, because this will allow me to get campfires. That's right, even though there are wonderful trades we can eventually get out villagers, like golden carrots, or enchanted diamond shovels, or pickaxes, we have all these things that we can theoretically get, which are really high-end and anyone would value, but there's also the campfire, which no sane person would like, but for me is going to be nuts. Right after, we trade with the Wandering Trader and get sand and red sand, which means that cactus that came in my bonus chest 146 days ago is now possible to finally start growing. Now, I'm excited because we're clearly entering the farm part of this world where we can start to farm a lot of resources that really seem like they shouldn't be possible in a Superflat, including, by the way, on day 147, we trade for a campfire, and the campfire is an amazing tool because when we get this campfire, it's of course a source of light that we can buy, but it's even better than that. Once we buy a few campfires, we can break any individual campfire and then we'll get charcoal from it. Free charcoal to be precise, which means that we can make 12 torches for every one of these campfires. But what we can also do is, if you look at the recipe for the campfire, we can then make 3 separate campfires, as long as we have 9 wood to go along with it, which also all eventually going to burn. This means that we can effectively use charcoal to farm charcoal, which means that even though there are no furnaces in this world, I now have access to a renewable source of light, and I guess if we wanted it, fuel for a non-existent furnace. But yeah, we have torches and we have campfires covered for as long as we want them. And so on day 149, you can see my little campfire line up. My idea was that, well, if there's loads of fires here, the mobs won't be able to get through to the villagers. Then I realized on day 150, I'm going to build a trench too, because this would actually not work by itself. Otherwise, the zombies are just going to be lit on fire as they run towards the villagers. And I guess I learned the lesson that you can't solve all of your problems with fire. On day 151, I'm just enthralled by this village. I need to do a lot of farming so that I can trade with the villagers, get those emeralds that I need for those sweet, sweet campfires, those sweet, sweet stone shovels, but also for day 152, getting shears. That's right, you can trade with a shepherd and he'll give you shears, which now mean that we have access to one of the greatest things iron can make, at least for a super flat world where we don't have many blocks to build from. And also, it lightnings again, which means we get more zombie pigmen. Man, we are just having all of the luck all of a sudden. After such a brutal first set of of days, I am feeling king of the world right now, which is why on day 153, I feel like I'm worth some cooked food, which I use the campfires to get all the way up with no issues whatsoever. On day 154, I move my bees to where my farm is, or I try to. It doesn't necessarily work too well until day 155, which I move the bees on by destroying their home. Maybe they should have subscribed to IBX Toycat, huh? And I also find some weird update blocks on the mangrove trees. I don't know how they got there. It's a weird little quirk of this world that now we have update blocks in this world. But we also have, as of day 156, an expanded village and also made the farm a little bit better. In fact, I imbue Farmer Toycat for the next few days here because you know what I do on day 157? I farm, and then I farm, and then I farm, but I also get a diamond shovel, which is pretty nice. Then I do some farming, then I do some farming, then I do some farming, and a little more trading and fishing, and then I finally get back to expanding my dirt forest before doing everyone's favorite thing, a little bit more farming on day 164. On day 165, I politely asked some villagers if they'd like to be relocated to the iron farm. They of course said yes, which is why I'm putting them in this boat, and it seems like they're not really wanting to go along with it. That's just how much they want to be over by the iron farm, and once I get them there, they actually say, wow, I'd really like it if you could bring some of my friends over, so of course I oblige and bring some more villagers over, because I'm just so darn nice. On day 166, I also breed animals. I breed sheep, which is very different to the villager breeding, although admittedly the sheep breeding isn't going to get me iron. It is going to be the start of hopefully an ability to get lots of different colored wools, or maybe it's just wool. Yeah, I think you get one set of colored wool, but if you've got lots of sets of colored wools, then it's a double plural. If I'm not mistaken, if you've got sets of singular plurals, they become a double plural. Wow, you're learning about grammar. Wow, just as fun as you're going to learn about building an iron farm, because this was my first ever time making one, and maybe you can tell from what happens on day 167 and day 168 that it's not really going necessarily perfectly. In fact, the only thing that does go quite well is my oak wood farm, which I decided to start because the whole thing's made out of it anyway, so we might as well get those resources on our hands. Day 169 is all about cutting those oak trees down and building the farm of the iron nature. We also maybe had a little bit of a mishap on this day because we had some swinging villagers in a boat just kind of hanging there. It was tricky. Okay, leads and boats and the whole mechanics of moving villagers, it's such a nightmare, but that's why on day 170 I continue doing it. On day 171 the iron farm it's going up quite nicely, and on day 172 we're doing even more breeding. Again, they totally just want to be breeding in these boats up here, and given that I need 20 of these villagers for this farm design that I'm using to work, there's a lot of not only deportation, politely asking them to come in boats all the way to the other side of the map, but there is also a lot of breeding that needs to happen, and so it's nice to see we're slowly upping our villager supply. On day 173, there's even more progress, and we get back to mining the oak wood. Honestly, for the next few days, it comes down simply to just breed villagers, make iron farm progress, chop down some wood. We do those 3 tasks over and over until day 175, where I do the unthinkable. I'm sorry, I murdered a cat. It was funny to see chat's reaction to this one, because cats are a very annoying mob, and I love Bark, the cat who's sitting there in my village, as much as anyone else. However, they are just such an annoying mob in terms of how much they spawn around villagers, and they also can be quite useful for someone like me because it is an opportunity to get lots of string. On day 176, I get the one thing more useful than string because I get sand from a wandering trader, and I also decide to start crafting the workstations for the villagers. Usually if you're making this farm design, you'll use fletching tables. However, I still have no access to gravel or flint, and so what I do instead is I make looms, which is my plan to trade with the villagers. This should work great. We put some looms next to some of the villagers, some looms next to the others, and after murdering the unemployed, we can, on day 177, we don't even just murder the unemployed anymore, but after doing a lot of murder, we apparently get the villagers in love-making mode. You know what? You guys are sick. There's a reason I deported you. There's a reason you're going to be trapped in a single source of water so the iron golems spawn. And so day 179 and day 180 are about making iron farm progress and finally turning the villagers into shepherds. Ooh, exciting. Honestly, this whole process is exciting. Putting together an iron farm, this is the first time I've ever done this. I kind of don't like the idea of farming iron via iron golems. It just doesn't feel right to me personally, which is a weird thing to say, I'll admit. Like, you know, feelings and Minecraft, do they need to mix? And in my case, they definitely do. However, I do need to get iron, and given how long it currently takes me, I think this is an opportunity for me to try it out, and that's the great fun of Superflat, is that I'm doing things I never normally would do, which is a lot of fun, except actually I've lied. What you've been watching as I've been saying that is the pain of me trying to get the villagers to link to the right workstations. It just did not work whatsoever, which is why even though on day 182, when I added water to the farm to theoretically make iron golems go to the right place, it didn't solve the underlying issue of the farm requiring 75% of villagers to have a profession that they can actively work. For some reason, even though we have 10 looms on one side and 10 looms on the other, some of the villagers on one side are linking to the other side's loom. What sense does that make at Minecraft? The answer is not very much sense, but it stops our whole farm working, immediately proving to me why you shouldn't make an iron farm, really. But on day 184, they stopped giving me more because the iron golem has finally spawned in. We now have access to iron in greater numbers than 1 every hour. We can get 5 iron ingots every single minute if the iron golem farm works, which it definitely will, right? On day 185, I continue to gather from the iron farm. The point of this is to get enough iron for an anvil so I can actually use enchanted books and get my own customized tools, and it's going really well. I actually add water to the farm today to make it even more automatic. Things are going really well on day 186 until mysteriously it stops going well and everything starts going terribly, and the only redeeming factor is today I managed to get some kelp from a wandering trader, and I also committed some infanticide. That's right, I figured I needed to get this iron farm working, and the easiest way is to just kill some babies that are popping up, and so I did precisely that. Day 187, and it seems as though my sacrifice of the baby villager has apparently not fixed my iron farm. Wow, is murdering children not the solution? I don't know how to do anything anymore, so what I start to do is I murder a fellow cat, and then I decide, wait a minute, I can actually use this iron farm, which is temporarily not working as iron farm, at least as a string farm, and so it's pretty sad, but I mean, Minecraft wouldn't give them a string drop if they didn't want you to farm them, right? Am I right? So on day 189, I try to fix things, but apparently it does negative progress because on day 190, even my cat grinder stops working, and so now I have to go through some serious thinking about what's gone wrong. I decided to relink all of the job sites as my solution, having one side be exclusively shepherds and the other sides be exclusively cartographers, and then for some reason, despite breaking all of the stations, some of the villagers just stay as shepherds despite not having a workstation. What sense does that make? Even when I remove all of the job sites, there is not a single profession that they can take up. Some of the villagers are still employed. I've not traded with any of them, and it's slightly frustrating. So at this point, I look to chat for help, and I realize I've made the great mistake of asking the internet for advice, which maybe started this next rant here. You know, everyone give me advice for things I should have done 4 hours ago. Okay, right now. In fact, wait, let's go even further. Can everyone give me advice for things I should have done when I was a teenager that you don't think I did? No, let's go a step further. Like, honestly, let's work out, should my parents have given birth to me? Like, you know, they weren't in the best financial situation, so should they really have had a child? I'm gonna say no. I think this whole thing could have been avoided if my parents had just realized that contraception maybe was the better decision when you're age, 19. Fortunately, it seems as though this rant actually brought the iron golems back to life, because on day 195, I get the crucial iron golem that I need to get me to enough iron to make an anvil. That's right, I have now got enough iron to also make hoppers to collect the iron, and also, the string. But day 196 is also when my totem of undying is used up, because an iron golem hits me just a little bit too hard, and so, now I'm not protected from death anymore. I decided to clean up the farm a little bit and remove any spawnable areas for the golems that weren't necessarily great, and so after I've killed enough golems, I now have for day 197 the ability to plant a rose garden, a very small rose garden, for the trophy to represent all of the iron golems I've killed. I also am very lucky this day because I get jungle saplings from a wandering trader, and everything is going my way, it seems, until day 198, where for some reason the iron farm breaks. Seriously, a big trend of the number of days I spent here is just the the iron farm breaks for reasons I don't understand. I try to fix it, and iron golems spawn again, and then it breaks, and yeah, this is a continuous pattern for the series, but either way, it's day 200. Day 200 is super exciting. I get to make enchanted gear with an anvil, and I get a mending villager, but by the time I get the emeralds to actually buy the mending book, he's changed trades. No! It's super unlucky, but fortunately that's the only unlucky event I say before day 200 arrives, and what happens? A zombie makes it to one of my villagers and converts them. Man, that's never not going to be painful after the process we have to go through for each of these guys. But on day 202, it gets better because I try to get mending from a villager by breaking and replacing a lectern. I do this something like 100 times, so I'm pretty guaranteed to have mending, and no, I don't see it a single time. But I do start a sugarcane farm since I'm going to need so many books, and also since I can trade sugarcane into paper, into emeralds, I feel like it's a good, worthwhile trade. So on day 203, I expand the village, I make some moss, and the iron farm's broken again. At this point, I feel like I could not update you and just say, it's broken, it's broken, it's broken. Don't worry, by the end, things have changed. Maybe, who knows? But yeah, we're on day 203. At this point, I could say, yeah, we've made it basically 100 days since the last one, but we're going all the way to day 256. If you do appreciate that this is an extra long video, I mean, 100 days is a really long time in Minecraft, but 148 days, which is what we're covering in this video, if you appreciate that, please do like the video, consider subscribing or doing any of the other positive actions towards it. It helps out a lot, and as a YouTuber, it's something it's really appreciated when you spend so many hours working on something. A lot of people ask for these recaps, and I hope you're enjoying it, because on YouTube, just like in life, sometimes it's the small gestures that mean a lot, and yeah, your like would be appreciated. But you know what else is appreciated? On day 204, because I have enough builds that are far enough apart, I decide to up the simulation distance, which is kind of a milestone. This world not fitting into a 4-chunk radius is actually a pretty cool thing to be at, and I also breed some villagers. On day 205, I buy some trades from the iron farm villagers to lock them into their workstations. I hope that since villagers are being so arbitrary in which job sites they're choosing, and they keep switching from block to block to block, if I lock in the ones that have the correct workstations, i.e. ones that are directly around them, either cartographers for one side or shepherds for the other, it should help things out, and it goes quite well, as you'll see later. But for now, on day 207, I trap some baby villagers in a jungle villager house. You know, that's an important thing, and I cook some meat on a campfire. I realize I've had these campfires, but I've not been using them to cook. It's been really great in this way. On day 208, I work on some villager houses, just kind of bringing this village up to scratch. I want to make sure they're absolutely secure in these places so that we never lose all of our villagers and have to start again from scratch. We've seen how painful that process is, and while I'm doing this, I'm right next to all of my librarians, and so I attempt to get mending again, but I get protection 4 instead. Protection 4 is nothing to laugh at, though. It's something really great, because it means that I'm now going to be very unlikely to die. I just need protection 4 and some unbreaking, maybe later some mending, and now I've got some really good armor that'll keep me going forever. And what do you do with good armor? You extend your sugarcane farm, of course, and also I decide that finally, if we're going to expand this village, we need to move our pets. I love you, Stripey and Not Stripey and all of my other good friends, but we decide we're going to need to move them out of this little pond and move the pond somewhere else. I don't know where that pond will be, but it's going to be grand and massive, don't you worry. And on day 212, I finally get mending from the villager. Yes! I also decide to, in celebration, name my sword the Big Salmon Revenger, which is, you know, it's a totally normal name for a sword. On day 213, I expand the sugarcane farm, which I continue to do on day 214, and now is also a good time to make a little staircase up, which I do by placing moss carpet on top of the sugarcane, making it a jumpable block. Very wonderful stuff. On day 215, I plan a mansion, because I'm going to need to have this big museum for all the blocks I'm connecting, but I feel like if it's going to be a mansion on a super flat world, it makes sense to build it out of dirt. So I'm doing the planning on this today, while also getting lucky and getting small drip leaf from the Wandering Trader. So on day 216, we do the outline. Again, it's always important with big builds to start planning them, and so on day 217, as well as expanding the sugarcane farm, I start to build the walls up just a little bit. On day 218, the walls come up even higher, while also doing some important trading, and also making this lovely water feature out the front of the mansion. And on day 219, I take a little break from the progress and use it to get a mending hoe. That's right, you can't put loyalty on a hoe, but you can at least put mending on there when things get terrible. Also, everything goes horribly wrong this day with this horde of zombies, and we'll skip past that and instead tell you about day 220, which is when I secure my little villager trading hall, which is mostly looking like a fossil at this point, and I use that to make sure that they don't get out once they've got their good trades locked in. I don't want to lose any of these. What I do want to lose, though, however, is the lack of mansion in this space, so I build that for day 221. I had some moss blocks on there for day 222 to add a little bit of character. I do feel as though dirt was getting a little bit mundane, so I added some grass blocks as well as some moss blocks. I think that worked quite well, which I continued to do on day 223. For day 224, I decided to extend the moat a little bit so that mobs can't cross over. Again, maybe had a few bad experiences of creepers that I'm trying to avoid. And then on day 225, I take another break. It's important in Minecraft to take breaks from your big projects so you don't feel trapped into them, and so I extend my staircase to heaven even further. I then use day 226 to get right back to the mansion, building some walls and a ceiling now. It's starting to really come together as a structure, and on day 227, I make the important preparations to start a map wall. Also, I hope that today has been an eye-opening experience for all of you, because if your eyes aren't open, then you're watching live streams wrong. Getting right back into the swing of things, though, on day 228, while working on the dirt mansion, I do a little bit of trading, and I find a pillager patrol. This pillager patrol can cause absolutely no issues with me killing it, except, of course, the raid that spawns on day 229, and I decide to start this entirely unprepared, and nothing goes wrong until I die. And yeah, that's all that goes wrong, don't worry. A witch actually gets a double kill, helping me out, and things are going very well until day 230, where I die for the second time in this single raid. Yeah, you know when I said protection would help me not die ever again? It turns out I was incredibly wrong about that, and I do eventually beat the raid though. I get this hero of the village effect, and everyone's very happy with me, and I hope that this leads to iron farm success. It doesn't. But on day 231, what I do end up with is some sugarcane farm progress, which is my favorite type of progress. A lot of people have been asking if I'm going to be making an insane sugarcane farm on this world too, and it's so tempting, but for now, I'm just going to be happy with what I have right here. On day 232, I fill out some maps and I get myself some meat, and I also decide to treat myself to a luxury since, you know, have you ever seen stripy grass in real life? It's a very fancy thing. I decided to put this out front of the mansion to show that this is a big old mansion with proper luxury grass using moss and grass to make that lovely 2 layers of green effect. I quite like it personally. I think it looks kind of strange when you can see the side, but we'll ignore that for now, and instead work on building the mansion some more on day 233. I also breed some pigs today, but on day 234 things get even better because I finished the map making. That's right, I decide I've got my 9 maps finished, and now I'm going to place them on the floor, because instead of making a map wall, which is the stereotypical idea, I feel like I'll take advantage of the new feature of placing item frames on the floor to make a lovely map floor. And I also decided that, you know what, if I'm going to have a map wall, I've got to write something on the map so that it can be seen, and so I write hello on the map, and I realize hello is so similar to help that I might as well have a help on there too, which is very fun. And so yeah, on day 235, I've completed the 3x3 map floor, which will absolutely not have any issues for me later on, except, you know what? The last 20 days of this video all come from the same live stream. I was just about to leave for America, where I'm recording this audio, by the way. And so yeah, I wanted to get as much Superflat in as I could before I left. And so I planned a 4-hour stream for just before my flight left. Except, you know what's crazy? And what happened is apparently something I did in the previous live stream broke the world. I spent over 30 minutes trying to work out what it could be. I copied world saves. I left the beta. I joined the... I did so many weird things to the world. And the thing that I discovered is that there is a bug which has been duplicating maps. There are thousands of map files saved in my world, and something about those map files is causing the world to crash every time I load it up. So by going into an inventory editor, which you shouldn't have to do just to load up Minecraft, but I went into an inventory editor, I deleted all of the map files, and boom, we now have saved our save. And yeah, so I killed some mobs to get some stress relieved, and our map floor is no longer, but it's the least of my issues. For now, I never want to touch a map again if it allows me to do what I want to do on day 236, which is bone meal some moss blocks so I can get even more of them to work on the museum lawn a little bit more. I also used day 237 to chop down some oak wood. I'm getting all of these fundamental resources in right now, and yeah, as this last 20 days goes on, you're going to see that my cognitive ability goes down a little bit, like on day 238, where I farm wheat and breed cows for leather. I mean, it's not
the smartest thing I've ever done in the way I pull it off. But on day 239, I trade some pumpkins, get some floor work in. On day 240, I make the museum more decorative with more moss blocks, and I also decide to star an oak tree wall around our chunks. I'd just seen in a recent survival tour video what someone had done with making this wall of oak trees, and I loved it so much I decided I wanted to do it myself, and I had all these spare oak saplings, so I started working on this wall, which I think looks pretty good. I also chopped down more trees so I could get more saplings to work on this wall, and use some of the benefits of that to cover the floor of our mansion in dark oak buttons. This sounds insane, but it will stop mobs from spawning, and it also, I think it has a weird, again, it kind of fits the theme of this world. We're using weird blocks you usually wouldn't expect because the alternative is too expensive, and I kind of like it. I don't know about you, maybe it's just me, but what I also like is when the creeper blows up in front of my museum. That is such a good time. I love it so much. You know when creepers explode and do so much damage and it takes a while to repair it? That is my favorite part of Minecraft, and yeah, obviously this is a big tragedy, but it is something that I can deal with relatively simply. I mean, I'm going to be honest with you, I was getting very tired at this point, and it took me a while to get it perfectly matched up, but I did do so. I also decided to use day 43 to add some pathway details to the museum roof. Again, it's all about trying to add some detail to what is effectively just a big dirt structure on some dirt, and I think it's going at least slightly well so far. I also used day 244 to work on the floor again, and then I use acacia buttons to show directions. Rather than having a dark oak floor, which is basically what I've been doing to this point, I decided to guide people around this big open empty currently empty, I guess, this big empty museum room. I feel like the best thing to do is use these acacia buttons. And then I get hungry and I cook some vegetables. You know, you can see this stream falling apart right now. But on day 245, I do some more floor work. And on day 246, I eat those vegetables. It's pretty silly to watch this back. I'll be honest with you, because it does continue on to day 247. I was very hungry, and again, I had like only 4 hours of sleep planned out before a flight, and what was I going to do besides cook some asparagus on stream, I guess? And so yeah, I also do some trading pumpkins while working on the floor today, and on day 248, you know what I finally do? After so long of mentioning the stairway to heaven, my stairway finally reaches heaven, and by that I of course mean build height, which, I mean, I guess that's several thousand blocks below heaven. But either way, I'm finally at build height. This is very exciting for me. And you know how I celebrate? I jump all the way to the bottom. Yeah, it's a fun feeling. Anyway, on day, it takes a surprising amount of time, right? Anyway, on day 249, I gather some leather, I get some trading for enchanted books, and I work on the museum roof and floor works. I've decided that by the end of day 256, I want to finish this museum at all costs, and you might see the consequences of that soon. On day 250, I catch up with breeding the pigs. I also gather some honeycomb because I've left my beehive farm for quite some time. It's important that I actually start sharing this as I walk past. Important things to do, just like important that on day 251, I buy sand from the Wandering Trader. Every single time he offers me one of these weird blocks that I just can't get in any other way, it's important to get that as fast as I can. And so I've got even more sand to build up my desert. You know, it's going to be fun having a desert on a super flat world, so I spent day 252 doing that, also chopping down a few cactuses here and there. I have far too many cactuses, but at some point this is going to come in useful itself. Speaking of things, on day 253, wow, this world has been going on for so long at this point. We are more than 50 hours deep into this series, and honestly, the fact that I still have big things I need to achieve, I mean, obviously, diamond armor is for one, but also there's all sorts of tool upgrades I can make, and it's just very fun to me that, like, after such a big length in a series, we're still working on these big things because it's so much harder, but that's what makes it rewarding in a way, which is why it's so great that on day 253 and day 254, as I work on the museum and get it almost done, I start adding lighting under the floor even, because I realize that covering the ceiling up is going to make this happen, that I'm starting to have this big goal, this big idea that was just something in my head 50 days ago, slowly come into fruition, and for day 255, I actually plan to make a fish tank in the center of the museum for our fishies. I mean, we're going to be collecting all of the tropical fish, of course, and one of the issues of this, however, is I don't have any glass. I could smelt up my sand, but I don't really want to do that, so instead I find a librarian who will trade glass for emeralds, and now I just need a lot of emeralds, and I can finally make the fish tank. That's just a plan for now, however, because I want to focus on finishing the building, so I finish off the roof and the walls, and we now have a functional and finished dirt mansion museum. This is going to be the place I'm going to be filling with every single block that I can find in survival. It's going to be a wild time, not not only getting all of the upgrades I need myself, but also trying to find every single unique block and item that is obtainable in a Superflat world, but that's what I'm going to be doing in the next 100 or so days after this.
I've been playing survival in this flat world for almost 400 days now. In the beginning, I started with just a bonus chest and managed to work it up into a cauldron, a lightning rod, and then a villager. From there, over the last 256 days, you've seen me turn that into a giant lake with functioning coral and fishes, into an iron golem farm, but it's gone even crazier than that over the last 100 days, and I want to give you the recap, but let me just tell you, something absolutely tragic hits on day 357, which might just end this series forever. It's the most heartbreaking Minecraft bug I've ever experienced, but you know what isn't a bug? When YouTubers lie and say there's a big bug going around where you might be unsubscribed. No, I think you should check if you're subscribed just in case you're not and you want to be. I'd appreciate that because these videos do take a really long time to make, just like the dirt mansion that I built at the very end of the last recap video. And as you can see, this thing was a really great idea, build a mansion out of dirt to show your conquering of the dirt world, but in reality it looks like I built something of the exact same palette that the world is already filled with. And so for day 256, I wanted to go in a different direction and build something that is the opposite of this world. It's a big flat square of grass, and so why not make a big circular, natural looking water feature of some form, and so the river circle is planned. This is going to take a big circle, and so I use some online software that can plot out this 300-meter circle for day 257, and then I start digging on it, and I really hope that I've got the calculations correct. The diameter of this circle is so ridiculous, I genuinely can't see it from the ground, so on day 258 I decide to climb my staircase to heaven and get a little bit of a look at the progress of it so far. I think it looks just about like a circle, but I'm really gonna have to wait to the end to know if this is great, which is why I decide on day 259 that it would be just fine if I took a little break, and so I get to breeding my pigs, which is super important for those gold ingots later. I do a little bit of trading, and then I decide it's time to get right back to this river. I can skip you over most of the next 3 days worth of progress by telling you that most of it looks basically like this.
3 2 2 twos, 1 2 twos, 3 ones, 2 ones are 2, 6 5 2 3.
On day 262, I tell myself you've got a lot going on for you because I trade with my toolsmith to get one of the most valuable items in the game. It's a brand new diamond shovel. Not just any diamond shovel, an enchanted one too. I also decide to trade a lot of stone shovels, and man, I don't have any use for these. Now I have the diamond one, but I trade for a lot of these so I can get a diamond hoe as well. I really am getting diamond tools on a world with 0 diamonds, and that is the power of the Superflat trading, I guess. Anyway, on day 263, I focus a little less on me and a little more on the circle because man, it starts to get really confusing at this point. On day 264, do you know what I do some more? That's right, it is the circle, except today I'm now 100% sure I've made the circle slightly wrong.
Okay, yeah, there has been a mistake somewhere.
Although after a little bit more progress...
Oh, wow, this does line up. Whoa. Okay, this is insane. I made a 300 by 300 circle, and it actually lines up correctly.
Day 265 is here, and oh no, I actually have made a mistake. The circle is a spiral, except I'm gonna pretend that was my plan all along. And now I have to do the important thing, because now I built the bones of my spiral river, which I definitely always said was gonna be a spiral. Ever since the beginning, I said I wanted a spiral river in this world, but now I need to make sure that it's wider, and so that's what I do for today, add a little bit of width to the river. On day 266, it's very important I do the same, just like how it's important to finally get out my opinion on Enderman.
I can describe the Enderman as sexy.
Do you know what's not sexy though? The mud block. I need to make a ton of these to make the variants of this block and also to make clay, and so one of the things I have to do is, confusingly enough, place water on the underwater dirt. I mean, the dirt is already surrounded by water, but for some reason this tiny extra little bottle is going to give me so much more. I don't question it, I just use it for the next day to get lots of water placed in my river to make more mud, and when I mine the mud, I make the river bigger even more. This is a silly system, but it totally works until day 269, which is when I decide to take out this rage of mine and kill some shepherd villagers. I have an iron farm problem, and I feel like murder is one of the solutions. Every single time a villager for some reason decides to tie himself to a workstation on the other side of my iron farm, I'm gonna kill him, and then eventually, if we keep breeding new villagers to replace them, we should have all of our villagers of one type be on one side and all of the villagers of the other type be on the other. This is essential for a working iron farm, which is essential for so many things I need in this world. Speaking of things you need, I think you're gonna need to see whatever this was. It's a baby zombie riding a kitten, because that is a real thing that can happen in Minecraft Bedrock. Baby zombies can ride just about any mob, and yeah, that is all the motivation I need to know that I should be working on my water river. On day 271, I buy even more stone shovels because I'm really committed to grinding my way up this villager toolsmith tree, while also digging my way down this river with glee. On day 272, I decide to take the Minecraft test of no one can tell you what you can and cannot do to its absolute limit, because while trying to trouble fix the iron farm, I decide that I'm going to murder a villager child because it's the easiest way to move villagers from one side to the other. Some would say that I went too far. The only thing I would say has gone too far is the river over the next 2 days, because I actually decide to widen it, deepen it, and then also cover it in mud to do precisely those two things. This takes a lot of doing, so 2 full Minecraft days, but by 275 I'm feeling pretty good about it. In fact, I take a little diversion so I can kill some of these stone shovels I've been collecting with the cacti. There's nothing more satisfying than truly destroying of an item when you're a hoarder like me and have real big inventory problems, but also what is satisfying is finally being able to say that I'm finishing this river, because every natural river needs 2 things. It needs a source and it needs a drainage spot. And although we can make the river thinner over time to kind of simulate that second bit, the first thing is going to be very important, and so I'm going to build a mountain. I have such a good vision in my head of how this mountain's going to go, and you know, I'll allow you to just skip ahead 3 to 4 days and show you what happens on day 278, because it has charming qualities. Okay, in my defense, as you can see from this clip, it was one of the hottest days of the year at this point, so we can blame my artistic challenges on that perhaps, and instead skip over to day 279, where I look at my progress and I reflect about what exactly has happened. It starts in the mountain. It's not a very good mountain, but it starts in the mountain. It flows all the way around. It fills the reservoir, and then it thins out and ends up there. Okay, we've spent over 20 days working on some purely aesthetic features, and I really do like the addition it makes to my world, but it's important we keep making progress. And as we all know, progress means killing a llama. This is actually a somewhat rare mob in this world. He only spawns with the Wandering Trader, who, by the way, made some good trades with him. And so on day 280, I add to my coral reef, make it just a little bit more fleshed out, and also plan a slime farm. I have this great idea that I want to get a ton of slime blocks to do something with, and so if I'm going to make a slime farm in this world, I'm going to need a lot of blocks. I decide mangrove roots would be a good decision, and so I spend the rest of today gathering those. On day 281, I continue this even more, and then immediately after I've got enough to make a farm out of, I realize that, oh dear god, these are a transparent block. If you want to make a farm, you can't use these because mobs can't spawn on transparent blocks. I bet there's a fun way to use that to your advantage, but in my situation, I just have a ton of these blocks I can't really use, and so instead I spend some time gathering some mud blocks so I can make some mud bricks and use those instead. It takes a lot of time to gather the extra wheat, which I do on day 282, but I finally make some packed mud and make the first layer of this slime farm. The reason this slime farm works, by the way, is because it is a slime chunk, which I surround with fences to keep the slimes in initially, and then I've just decided to start killing them. However, because I've now added this second layer to it, I have to be very careful because slimes will be able to jump out otherwise, and so moving this boundary back a few blocks is very important. You know what else is important? Making a ton more mud using this still very confusing method of water bottles underwater. Someone's going to have to explain to me the actual Minecraft sense that it's trying to make. Minecraft's trying to be so realistic these days, but somehow using a water bottle is more important than having a whole bucket of water. Where's the difference there? Speaking of differences, on day 284, I make some mud some more, but I also finally get some ferns from the Wandering Trader. These are a very silly, needless item, but I'm trying to get as many different items as I can in this Flat World Survival, and that is the only way to get ferns, at least initially, and so I take some because it's a great steal. While thinking of great deals, I remind myself of the best structure in Minecraft, and I think maybe I've got enough spare mud bricks that I can finally treat myself to one of these beauties. That's right, it's a mud brick desert well. It's builds like this that remind me of the true beauty that can be found in life. If you can make something like this from scratch on a purely flat world, then what else can you do in the world? Truly, the desert well is an inspiration to us all, but we have to get back to normal life at some point. I get right back to picking up some sticks on day 286. You know, wheat isn't synonymous with sticks, so that rhyme doesn't work, but you know what? I like to rhyme. I do it all the time. What are you going to say about it? On day 287, I realized that I really have not made a slime farm before, and I'm not even looking into how to make this one. I'm just kind of winging it, so I get some wood for fences, and I slowly expand the farm some more. Same with the next day, and on day 289, I take a short break to murder some more villagers, because if I keep murdering villagers, the iron farm must work eventually. I mean, surely, if I just keep playing this annoying game of whack-a-mole, because I have to kill the right type of villager, but they're bobbing at a slightly different rate to the wrong type of villager, if I can just eventually kill these villagers and, get them rebred, then I should be in a good place. Just like how the slime farm is starting to get into a good place, because after building a second layer of spawnable blocks, I actually have a functioning slime farm. I mean, I really am just using campfires at the bottom here. It's a lazily reworked iron farm, but it totally works. And although it's not automatic in the collection, I got 53 slime blocks, and that's just so many without a looting sword, in my opinion. It turns out the idea of just have a ton of campfires is a totally viable strategy. Speaking of viable strategy, something else I think I'm missing now I've got my semi-functioning iron farm. Okay, it's still not any amount functional, but I have my iron farm, I have my slime farm, I've got the sugarcane farm, the wheat farm, the mob farm. Something I feel like I need to add to this if I'm trying to get my hands on new blocks is a wool farm. And so on day 291, I unleash my inner Welshman and I decide to make a sheep pen, and I also am really lucky because the exact same day I start that is when I get some spruce saplings from the Wandering Trader. This is one of the last saplings that I need to get in this world, and I'm so lucky to get it here. Almost as lucky as I was when I got the mangrove saplings, because I can farm these mangrove trees to get this delightful red colored wood, which if I'm going to make a sheep pen, I'm going to need to use this, right? This is just the best color of wood in my opinion, just like how the best color of wool is this lovely sheep color right here, which I make a lot of progress on with day 294. This farm takes a few days to get going, but as my goal is to get all the colors of sheep, as I start to dye the more unique ones, on day 296 I officially have access to orange sheep for the first time, as well as light grey sheep and pink sheep. I can now share all of these types of animal and get access to new colors. That's right, we're going to enter the rainbow era of the survival Superflat soon, but before we can do that, it's important to gather more mangrove wood, breed more of these animals together, and most importantly, segregate the sheep based on the color of their wool. Actually, no, wait, we'll put the black in a separate pen now. It's totally okay because they're Minecraft mobs, probably. You know what? Full disclaimer here, segregation is only good if you're running a wool farm in Minecraft. All other types of segregation are probably bad. Speaking of things that are probably bad, on day 298, I finally get my hands on some blue sheep and some light blue sheep. I really am starting to work my way through the different colored sheep here, and it is kind of beautiful. Just like how it's the exact opposite of beautiful when the sheep farm is ruined by some slimes that spawned in the middle. Why is there a slime chunk right here in my sheep farm? This is one of the big issues of Superflat. Slime should not be spawning this low down in this frequency. Can't you see there are other mobs here in Minecraft? Read the room. I think that I wish there was some way to stop mob spawning, but you literally can't unless you literally make it a dirt path or you cover everything in transparent blocks. You're going to get a ton of these guys. I also start a tripstone farm today and also do a little bit of trading with villagers. On day 300, this would be the big milestone, but the last video, I did day 100 to 256 for reasons I'm still not sure about. And so day 300 is just kind of the midway point in this video, which is where we get purple sheep, magenta sheep, and also where I realize the last two dyes I need to get my hands on are cocoa beans and cactus green. I need to get green dye, I need to get cocoa beans, and you know what? It's really easy to get cactus greens because I do have this cactus farm over here. Day 301 has come, and it's really important for me to get a brown sheep, and I don't need to just necessarily get cocoa beans, I could also find one in the wild. So I spend all of today looking for one, and okay, nothing shows up. And on day 302, exactly the same happens here, and on day 303, I decide to widen my river by getting a lot of mud from it. I think this is an important thing. I also increased the color segregation in my sheep farm. Again, it's important to have the disclaimer that I kill all of the sheep equally, regardless of their color. I go through a lot of murder of the sheep right here, and yeah, on day 304, it's also important that I kill the impurities. First, I want all my sheep to be insane colored pens. Is that so much to ask? According to Minecraft, yes it is, because this isn't the last time they're going to get muddled. On day 305, I cook up the lamb using some campfires because I got a lot of it from all that sheep murder, and also I decide to officially name our cat, you know, Bark the cat. I feel like he was worth a name tag, and so I decided to spend the valuable name tag, which can only be fished, onto this guy right here. I guess I can trade for him eventually. Maybe that's what I'm eventually going to start doing in this world. You know, that's a good idea, right? How could I get into the trading business deep enough in so I could get name tags? That might come up in a little bit. You know what else is going to come up? The diamond hoe. I mean, I've been using it a little bit here and there. I feel like it's definitely worth putting mending on there, and so on day 306, I decide to do precisely that. I also get melon seeds from the Wandering Trader. This is the last crop type that I think I need, besides cocoa beans, but I need cocoa beans for brown dye. I'm not going to make any cookies in this world. Probably. We'll have to find out about that, though, after we plant our lovely melons next to our pumpkins. And also, I decide on this day to have a more cohesive strategy for my trees. I just have so many trees growing around the place, and so I decide that I'm going to place around the perimeter of the water as a way to kind of make the world more, nicely shaped and feel more natural. I'm going to place trees at different points. So there's an oak section, a spruce section, a jungle section, etc., etc. And so that's an aesthetic change I'm going to be making over the coming days. Speaking of those days, 307 is here, and I move the lightning chamber pigs from one place to another. On day 308, I decide, since I'm playing around my farms anyway, I might as well do a ton of pumpkin trading. I got, I'd say lucky, but it's kind of an essential of this world, that I can trade one pumpkin for one emerald. This is one of the most valuable trades you can make, and I've yet to realize it, but at this point, if I realize that if I can just get enough melons, I'll be able to craft them into one melon to trade for one emerald also. By the way, just have to point out, every single time this comes up, the recipe for a melon block being made from 9 slices of melon, what sense does it make that Steve can use a crafting table, a hammer, and a saw to turn 9 melon slices into a melon? Do you know how horrifying that would look in real life? Speaking of horrifying in real life, I've officially started to shear my colored sheep. You know, it doesn't make any sense that you dye them and then the wool grows back a different color, but we don't question it, just like how we don't question why on day 310, villagers are stealing the bone meal. What use do you have for this? There's no farms that you're tending, but yeah, it's annoying. I also shear some more sheep on this day. On day 311, I decide to finally add some carpet to the sheep farm, so rather than having to place blocks to get in and out, I can just, use the carpets on the side of the fences. This is one of the handiest ways to jump over fences as a player that for some reason no animal can actually use. It's also a very nice decoration to my sheep farm to have so many colors off it, and now it really drives home the last 4 types of wool that I'm missing. I don't have any brown, I don't have any green, or light green, or blue-green, whatever that's called. You know what, cyan is a fake color, but that's a rant for a different day. Speaking of rants, on day 312, I go on a pretty big one. The YouTube search function has been ruined. But if you try to search for something, it'll give you like 3 results that are roughly what you looked at. Then it's going to show you like third or fourth. Here is something entirely unrelated to just what you searched, but it's popular on YouTube. Then the 4th thing will be, here's something unrelated to what you searched, but it's recommended for you. No, what do you think search means, YouTube? I'm searching for something because I would like to look for videos like that. But something that drives me absolutely just bonkers crazy is the fact that searching for videos does not mean searching for videos. I also try to sort out the librarian villages because it's at this point that I realize I want to have as many different enchantments as possible to make fully maxed out tools, but if I'm going to do that, I'm going to need to put the effort in to grind out librarian villages. And so after successfully getting some glass on day 313, also after successfully farming my first melon and getting some carpet for the sheep farm, I start to appreciate just how far we've come over the 30 live streams that we've officially gone through now. That's right, this series, if you don't know, is live streamed in full. You can actually watch every single minute that I've ever spent in this world via a playlist of those live streams, which I'll link in the description, although who reads descriptions? I'll put it as a top comment, or you can find it via my channel and the playlist section, because 30 live streams, each of them are like 2+ hours, and so there's over 60 hours of work that have gone into this at this point, and it's pretty crazy to think about. But after admiring the view that is so clean, it's important for me on day 314 to set out my goals for the future of this world, and I think the most important one that is coming up, besides maybe doing more inventory organization, is to actually have all of these obtainable enchantments from villager trades. So step 1 is obviously make a more of a sugarcane farm. This is going to be very important. If you're trading with a type of villager that really wants paper, it's probably a good idea to get some of that. As day 315 dawns, I realize that I'm also going to need a ton of trees, so I can turn that paper into books and then into bookcases and then into lecterns. That's actually quite an interesting tree of crafting, huh? And I'm also going to need to organize my inventory, but, you know, we can do that another day. You know, like most important things, it's probably better done some other day. However, on this day, what I decide to do is make the villager breeding beds. You know, for some reason, the way to increase the villager capacity is to place a bunch of beds outside the house and then throw carrots through the roof. You know, it feels a little bit inhumane to do it this way, but it's totally important. And yeah, I also harvest some sugarcane and I move the moss staircase 1 block away so I can place some more sugarcane on my main farm. On day 316, I expand the sugarcane farm and I also try really hard to resist this trade. I want some blue ice. I know I could make a lovely pathway, but at this price, it's just so hard to justify right now. You know, next time he comes around, we'll have to take advantage of him a little bit more. You know, at this point, a lot of people are questioning, like, you know what, are you supporting villager cruelty? It sure does look a lot like you are, and let me put those fears to bed. Oh, no, you have this all twisted. I encourage villager cruelty. I don't just support it. I would prefer it actively if you did it. I also expand my melon, my pumpkin, and my sugarcane farm because this is all about farming so I can convert more things into emeralds. On day 318, I finally make those lecterns. I notice the villagers aren't breeding, so I make even more beds, and somewhere in that process, we finally get some love hearts around the villagers. Even though they're in a little bit of a weird love chamber, it totally works for them, and we're doing really good. On day 319, I talk about my interesting rat experience. No, I've changed my opinion on rats altogether. Like, you know, like that rat was so fast to bite me. You know, he didn't even wait to see, like, oh, am I going to a fun new home? He was just like, he was right in for the blood too. That rat probably even enjoyed it, I bet. Also, the villagers have a little bit of a problem with going into love mode. You know what, we get it. You really want to make lots of children, but they just continuously do it to the point where iron golems are now spawning. This isn't the biggest problem in the world, I guess. On day 320, I take these villagers, who are now plenty, and I move them using boats because I really want to, start making a little bit of a villager farm where they'll be trapped and forced to make trades using the lectern for me. This is slowly coming into progress with this weird fossil-looking thing, but yeah, in the meantime, I use this opportunity to try out a weird crafting recipe which really feels like it shouldn't work. So one of the recipes I've always just concluded I wouldn't be able to get my hands on is the stonecutter. The stonecutter requires stone slabs. There's no way for me to make stone slabs because there's no stone in this world. However, if you use sandstone slabs, you still can't make a stonecutter. It's not possible unless you use sandstone slabs and mangrove planks. I don't understand why this works either. I previously assumed that no matter how far I went up the tech tree, I'd have diamond tools, but an iron sword and iron armor, but as it turns out, I'm going to be able to have a full diamond toolbar. In case you're curious about the inevitable question, no, I can't make netherite because I can't go to the nether, but for now, it's really fun as an idea. Our weaponsmith villager is really enjoying his new home. That's right, it's not a prison, it's a home. He can leave anytime he wants if he's willing to die to do so. Speaking of things that you might die to do, understanding workstation linking mechanics in Minecraft is so tricky. Villagers don't link to the workstation they're nearest. There's some form of order that happens in the village, but it doesn't seem to change when a villager dies. I don't understand it in the slightest, but basically, I try to get my villagers to link to the right lecterns, and that is easier said than done, but eventually I get it nailed down, and I start to do the kind of tedious process of placing and unplacing a lectern over and over again. Why do I do this? Because every single time that a villager loses his profession, he also loses his trades. Assuming you haven't made a single trade with him before, the moment you make a single trade, he's locked in for life, and this means that if you have the same profession, let's say a librarian, he's going to get the same batch of trades, but an enchanted book can vary wildly in quality. So between these batches that I'm doing right here, we go from efficiency to sharpness to protection to whatever else, and so I'm looking for specific enchantments, the ones that are going to benefit me the most. I spend a lot of time on day 322 doing that, and it totally pays off because for 5 emeralds and a book, I can buy Silk Touch 1 from this guy. That is an amazing trade, and I make sure to lock it in as soon as I can. Also on this day, I question my inventory. Don't worry, we'll sort that later. And I also trade for more emeralds because it's very important now that I have a ton of emeralds so I can make these trades as I need them. On day 323, I finally get a diamond axe from the villager. That's right, we've got a pretty nice little diamond set of tools here. And I also get Frostwalker 2 from a lucky villager trade replacement. And this is a really cool enchantment. Look, I can run on ice, and it totally doesn't cause me any issues with destroying my farms because the water dries up, which dries up the sugarcane and the wheat. Nope, there are no issues here whatsoever. Day 324 makes me wish that I had some more, and I do actually get some fortune. Just kidding, I don't get it till day 325 when I really feel alive because I get fortune 2. It's not what I would have wanted, but for now I guess it will have to do. And I also harvest some carrots with my newly enchanted fortune hoe. It also feels weird that you can put fortune on a hoe, and also that doing so will give you more carrots, even though it uses no durability, but that's not my problem. I'm just enjoying my delightful new enchanted tool. I'm feeling really good about this world, and I'm really glad that it's going. I'm just enjoying pounding in stream after stream after stream. I don't think that anything could happen to it, because what possibly could? I mean, I make somewhat regular backups of the world. I'm sure nothing could go wrong with that. Speaking of nothing going wrong, on day 326, I make a nice improvement because I place mangrove signs above the librarian villagers just to let everyone know, myself included, exactly what books they're trading. And then I start to aim for more enchantments. It gets longer and longer between enchantments as the collection that we're trying to go for gets smaller and smaller. We get lots of fire protections and blast protections that I really don't want or need. I mean, what fires and explosions are happening in this world? Anyway, the enchantment I want the most is efficiency, and on day 328, do you know what I get? It's unbreaking, which is actually pretty great. I think this is a much later game enchantment, especially now that I have mending, but I'm not going to turn it down. I am going to put it on my armor, and I'm going to make sure that everything that I have lasts just a little bit longer by putting this wonderful enchant on it. I also do a lot more trading for emeralds because, again, I need to use so much of this, and I also almost completely break the sugarcane farm with these Frostwalker boots. Wow, who could have seen that coming? I also put another Fortune 2 book on my diamond hoe, and now it's Fortune 3, and you know what else happens this day? The most important thing, I've been waiting so long, a thunderstorm finally starts. This is incredible. I can finally get my hands on all the gold that I'm going to need, and you know what happens immediately after it starts? I don't know why, I don't know how, but immediately after the first strike of thunder, the lightning storm is over. This is technically something that can happen because the thunderstorm doesn't overlap with the rain in a way that's useful, but it's still so frustrating to have waited over 100 days for a thunderstorm, and then it doesn't actually help me in the slightest. This is sad, but do you know what else is sad? Harvesting crops in a thunderstormless world, and also not sorting my inventory. Don't worry, I'll get to it right after I do more of this librarian sorting, trying to get the right trades, and you know what? I get offered fire protection again. Just a reminder, the real fire protection is subscribing to IBX Toycat, because greater than 99.9% of house fires happen to people who aren't subscribed to the channel. But yeah, I had to do a little bit of a plug for fun before day 331 because I finally get efficiency 5 on day 332. All that I do is buy tropical fish from the Wandering Trader and then take all of my tropical fish, although it's actually just some of it, into chests in the Dirt Museum. This museum is going to house not only all of the blocks and all of the items from the world, but also my tropical fish collection, which I'm hoping gets pretty big. Again, let's not have flash forwards to what's about to happen, and instead, let's enjoy that my PC crashes, and it's a little bit dumb that I have to change all my settings back, but it's totally fine. Minecraft can crash without deleting all your stuff. Don't worry, you might hear that it'll corrupt your worlds, but it hasn't happened to me yet. On day 334, I fail some more at getting the enchantments that I want. Seriously, an entire day spent trying to get new enchantments that I need, and none of them were had until day 335 when I finally feel alive at the idea of having sharpness 4. This is a really good one. It's going to allow me to buff my sword in a really significant way. And do I need sharpness? Probably not, but it's going to allow me to do just that little bit more damage. Now I need a diamond sword even more, which is why I do a lot of trading with the weaponsmith. You know what? It's not going very well because the next day I literally have to buy a bell. Do you know how expensive those things are? I just figured it was like an important part of the village, but my god, am I getting expensive on this one. The only ways I can make progress with the weaponsmith is to sell iron to him, and I have no decent source of iron, or to buy his stupid stone tools, which are just not helping me in the slightest. You know what else isn't helping me in the slightest? On day 337, my aquarium starts to be planned. I buy some glass from librarians. Again, I can't smelt my own sand into it, And even if I could, sand isn't renewable. So I have to buy my glass from librarians, and I have some spare emeralds, and then I make a fish tank, which is absolutely beautiful. I think the pumpkin jack-o'-lantern floor really adds to this. And so yeah, over the next couple of days, I make progress on selling things to villagers and also making the fish tank a little bit nicer and more filled with the things that it needs to be. And finally, on day 339, I finally put all of my tropical fish in the tank. Because of the way I filled it with water, even though I tried to specifically avoid this, they all float on the surface till they're dragged down, and I don't think there's any way to fix that. Water mechanics just aren't built for making fish tanks or oceans unless they spawn in naturally, so you know what, fine, it's just a weird fish tank where they all float at the bottom. It sounds like a bad thing, but given that I'm going to collect every single tropical fish, I mean, eventually, I can now appreciate my unique types. If I did get a duplicate, of course I'd have to kill him using the impaling enchantment, which is going to be very easy and doable, definitely, don't question it. And yeah, on day 341, I decide, you know what, this museum was never truly finished. I just kind of left it alone because I didn't like it after the last time, but it's important for me to finish the floor of the museum and also to place the buttons on there so that mobs don't spawn. You know what, that might become important later. Probably not though. Anyway, after this, I decide that it's really important to start staying up. I really want some thunder or lightning or whichever of the two it is, let's be honest, we don't care. And so yeah, on day 343 is when I finally start to realize that I'm just gonna have to stay up all night to make this happen. And so my big plan for this little stream, the days up ahead, are to make all the different colors of hardened clay and glazed terracotta. So I get the dyes that I need, I get the clay that I need, I start introducing my video, and midway through. So some of these clay balls I'm gonna... Damn it, in my head I was like, I'm gonna smelt them. It's crazy, all this time later, after saying to people like, yes, it's sad, I can't do anything with gold, I just now made the mistake on the spot of thinking, oh, I could totally make clay into bricks, and... Okay, so I can't turn clay into bricks, but I can turn clay into clay, just like so. And once you get 8 clay blocks together, you can harden them using a furnace. No! On day 344, after doing a bit of research, stonemasons will trade hardened clay with you, which means eventually I'll be able to get it if I just keep curing villagers, and, you know, like when you cure a villager, he gets a random profession, and we keep praying that we eventually get a stonemason. It's a 1 in 12 chance. We can also look for an armorer or a butcher or anything like that, and so that is the plan now. We are going to stay up genuinely for as long as it takes, even though it means 20-minute days and it means nighttime and mob spawning. We're going to keep on doing it until we have the wondrous stonemason, or at least till we have a single lightning strike, because yeah, going to sleep makes lightning a little bit less likely. By the way, I've been talking so much about how great it's going to be to have a full set of diamond tools, but I don't think I've mentioned the most important tool of all, which is the shears, which are finally getting mending on them now. I also get lapis from the Wandering Trader today. I was really excited about this till I realized it was green dye I was missing. You know what? I made a few mistakes in this particular stream if you go and watch it back. Like seriously, on day 346, I went to sleep even though I really wasn't meant to. I just made a big point about doing it. So I also enjoyed day 346 as an opportunity to expand my cocoa bean farm a little bit. I also harvested some fresh spruce wood, and I sorted out my wood and leaves chest because now I need a separate wood to leaves chest. I really am collecting far too many blocks. A lot of those are leaves, which made me use my shears a lot, which made me realize that, you know what, this speed of breaking leaves is just not acceptable to me. And so what I did is I put efficiency on those shears just to make sure I got the maximum capability possible. Also later this day, I decided to grow some big mushrooms because I want to get my hands on some new blocks. I've had that silk touch axe, I've been using it for trading for some time now, and now I'm going to use it to get some mushroom blocks. I also have a really unlucky day because I lose one of my villagers to a zombie. Probably should have protected him better. And also I kill skeletons for bone meals because I want to use them on mushrooms to make bigger mushrooms because I have this big idea for a mushroom temple or something. I want to build big using mushroom blocks. This is my biggest opportunity to do so. And also what is a big opportunity is day 348 because all of this lag keeps making me late and I really need to move these pigs. I'm excited for lightning to strike so I can finally move my pig farm somewhere else because when there's this many roaming around at this speed, there's not much we can do besides take the frame rate drop. Speaking of frame rate drop, I try to fix the iron farm again and totally drop the ball on that. And so I come to the conclusion that clearly I just haven't murdered enough villagers, and so that is going to be my solution. It actually actually doesn't work, and so now I kind of begrudgingly, with day 349, admit that I'm gonna have to make another iron farm at some point. I get a couple of villagers ready on a faraway point of my world where they're gonna be able to make their own village and therefore their own iron farm, but that is a future problem. For now, I'm just gonna build a wall around them because of what happened for the last ones, and now I've been up so late for so many nights that phantoms start to spawn. Day 350 should be a big milestone, but it's just this depressing, phantom-filled nightmare until lightning strikes. That's right, at this moment, I start to have the wonderful revelation that as long as I get a second strike soon enough, I will have a ton of zombie pigmen, and what do you know? Look at the pit that I have. There's always a massive drop in frame rate whenever I start killing these guys, but now I have a looting sword. I'm going to be able to get more than just one golden apple. I'm hoping for 2 or 3 or maybe even 4. But first, it's time to kill all of the zombie pigmen, and this takes a surprising amount of time. You'd be surprised at how many pigs you can fit in a hole. And yeah, after killing them all, I have 1,000,000 swords. I have almost 200 nuggets. I got 3 golden apples between all of these, which is incredible because the 2 previous times I managed to have this wonderful reaction of pigs into piglins, I've only managed to get myself 1 golden apple each time, so having 3 is a massive upgrade, let me just tell you. So day 351 is spent moving some pigs into a new off-site lightning chamber. Again, the goal is to run over there when it starts lightninging, but otherwise, the massive number of pigs isn't going to be a problem because they're going to be out of the simulation distance and therefore not simulated and therefore not causing me lag, I hope. Anyway, let's talk about the day that is 352, because from here onwards, things are going to get insane. I need to do the classic zombie villager curing method, so this requires me to have a witch throw a weakness potion at me, because I still can't brew those, I never will be able to, and then I've got to hope that it also hits a zombie. Then I need to immediately give the zombie a golden apple, and then keep him safe from daylight, keep him safe from all of these other things, so that he can survive to the day and that we can have a wonderful, new, thankful villager who is really grateful that we cured him. And so, yeah, I try my very best. I put some zombie villagers in a boat, and then I try to get a witch to spawn in the mob grinder, and I finally get one, and then the witch gets into a fight with the zombies and poisons themselves, and it all just goes terribly. And honestly, the witch pathfinding is so bad. Look at all of these moments where there is a witch right in front of me, there's a path directly between me and it, and for some reason the witch just can't find me. It is terrible, and even when they eventually do find me on day 353, I eventually get them both in boats side by side, but I'm getting poisoned so much I decide to get some milk, and while going to get some milk, the mobs despawn. You know, it's meant to be me that walks out and gets the milk and runs away forever, not the mobs that I was desperately trying to turn into. Whatever, day 54, and you know what, I try to find a witch literally all day, except now I've been up so long that phantoms are spawning, and you know what, we need to just scrap this and start again from scratch. This is going to be a process I need to do a ton of times, potentially dozens, and so we need to perfect this as best we can. So I'm going to build a specific chamber, a very small space, where a witch is going to be trapped inside. She is going to have a name tag on, so she'll exist day or night, and it's going to be covered up and great, and it's never going to cause me any problems unless I stand in this very specific spot and I want to get splashed by potions. Except if I'm getting splashed by, you know, like potions all the time, I'm getting poisoned non-stop, I'm going to want some milk. So what I do is I bring a I bring a cow, I tie him to this little block right here, and now I have the ability to cure myself of poison. It is going really, really well, and at this point I'm thinking, what could go wrong? And then it all goes wrong, and yeah, we get splash potion to death. On day 356, but shortly afterwards, after coming back from such a brutal killing, I finally have the magic formula work where I finally get a splash potion of weakness thrown at me. It doesn't work on both of the zombie villagers, which is heartbreaking and would have really been ideal, but it's fine. I cure my zombie villager and I await the trades. Am I going to get an armorer? Am I going to get a fletcher? Am I going to get, you know, some form of trade I can't otherwise get? Nope, I get a shepherd, which is boring. It's literally almost the worst it could have been because I can buy shears for 1 emerald now, but I have so many shears already, and so that's worthless. On day 357, I try this again, and I eventually get another curing to start, and we actually end up with a butcher, which is otherwise unobtainable. You cannot have a butcher without a smoker, and the smoker recipe is this. As you can see, there is a furnace in the middle, and so this is a kind of valuable thing. I don't want to buy the raw meat or anything, but being able to get this type of villager is super rare, and so I leave him in this very secluded spot where I think think he'll be fine. On day 358, I realize he's not fine. I didn't lock in any of those trades, and so my butcher has become a fisherman. This is just beyond heartbreaking. I lost my super rare villager type because I didn't trade with him, and I wasn't really sure that I wanted him, but now that I've lost him, I know that I did want him the whole time. And just after realizing that, something tragic happens because my PC crashes, which means the footage looks like this. It just immediately goes from me streaming to, oh god, there's been a crash. And so as soon as I load up Minecraft, I have the exact same glitch where all my settings have been erased. It's really frustrating, but it's the second time it's happened in a few weeks, so I just kind of accept this. Okay, I'm blind Alex/Steve, and I'm having all these issues. But then I load up my world looking to get right back to curing zombie villagers, and it's what? Where is the world? Well, it's entirely gone. You can see a bunch of fish flapping around and then immediately dying because they're no longer in water, and you can see that everything is gone besides this tiny section of river. I don't understand what bug happened here, but what it resulted in is the entire world not just being corrupted or unplayable or missing some chunks. The entire world was reset right back to flat. All of the last 357 Minecraft days, the dozens of hours, almost 100 hours at this point, all of that has been for nothing because the world is gone. This is an absolutely heartbreaking bug, and I think to myself, thank God that I do somewhat regular backups for the sake of being able to get the B-roll footage, the shots you saw earlier. That was a copy of the world, so I could do these creative shots that you enjoy. Look at this one right here. Wow, gratuitous, lovely shot of the Superflat world. So I make these backups just, like as a precautionary measure, but also to make these shots. And I think, yeah, thank God we can use a backup. But the last time I did a backup, and the place where these shots came from, is actually episode 30. So that would be a dozen hours of work, the last 5 live streams. All of that would be gone. We'd be back at day 314 without all of those enchantments we just struggled so hard to get, without our zombie villagers, and without our lightning. So much progress would be gone that it's entirely unacceptable. And so me and a few of the people I work with on IBX Toy Map, so familiar with Minecraft's file structure, we look into this and we see if there's any way this can be salvaged. However, everyone I show my file to just says, yeah, it's just a purely flat world. The data is no longer in there. It was effectively overwritten with this flat world, and so there's nothing we can do. The world is lost, the series is over, and that sucks so bad. But then I got a message from Harrison reminding me that I have a full PC backup that seems to do itself a couple of times a week. And, there is a secret folder in the Minecraft file system you can go through where you can find your individual worlds. If you really want to, you don't have to back it up from inside the game. You can actually just find the world files and do it there. It's kind of complex, but you can do it. And so I think to myself, what if that backup just happens to be the right time period? If it happened on Friday after the stream, then it would be a backup of the broken world, and that's worthless to me. But what if the backup was from earlier in the week? What if it was Tuesday or Wednesday, and I've only lost a stream or two worth of progress? And so I have over 1,000 Minecraft worlds. People have commented on this, but it means it's actually 70 gigabytes of files that I have to look through, because when you look at the names of them, they don't tell you what the name of your world is. It's just an encrypted mess. So I have to look through these 1,000 files and try and find the one which is called Superflat. I don't find it. I don't find any match for my world that's been deleted, and this is super, super strange. Thankfully, it turned out I was just looking through the beta folder, which is very similarly named and looks exactly like the regular folder, and so after that setback and having a whole morning where I'd concluded that it's gone, this is what happened next. This is my most recent Minecraft world, and so when we go to my folders, we should find that my most recent Minecraft world, even though it's got this weird encrypted title, the name of the folder is FSDUYNBS, whatever, this whole thing. And so if we just send that away somewhere so it doesn't duplicate, there we go, it's in documents now, then we can go to my backup, which it's all just unlabeled nonsense. But if we can just find FSDUYN, that's the one, and we now move it over, just copy to Minecraft Worlds. Now that should be in there. It's apparently been just updated now. But if we now refresh Minecraft, there it is! Now the only question is, how old is this version of the world? Okay, so what I did in episode 34 was I killed a lot of villagers. Yeah, I did this, I remember. No way! So the test that I'm going to use is if I have all of the gold for the golden apples and all of the pigs have been killed, that means we're at episode 34, which means all we lost, as tragic as it is to say, all we lost is 2 hours, and I think Yeah, look at that. I've got my gold. I've got my apples. I can craft a golden apple. Yes, I only lost 2.5 hours. The flat world is back. We can start this over again. And so that means the last 6 days are non-canonical. They are from the version of the world which doesn't exist anymore because it got fully wiped. However, now I need to know there are potentially bugs like that can happen, and I need to remember to back up my world rather than every 5 episodes, every couple of episodes is probably more logical. That is the second crash that has happened in this series, if you'll believe it. The other one was the map issue from day 100 to day 256. And yeah, if there's anything I've learned, it's that things can go crazy. So this was meant to be 400 days, but I guess 43 of those days were spent fixing my world. But now we can move onwards from here into the future, and that is something that is exciting. This is one of my favorite worlds to play around in, and there's still so much more to do. I need to take my big salmon revenger and turn it into a big diamond revenger. I need to get some diamond tools. I want to get some diamond armor that's maximally enchanted. I want to get some new villagers that will give me these super discounted trades, and I want to keep on working on getting every single block that is possible in a super flat. All of this came from one bonus chest, and it's been absolutely incredible to see the journey. 1 year ago, I started an experiment to see if I could survive in a Bedrock Superflat world. There are no structures found here, it's just endless grass with a single bonus chest which I used to turn my world from this on day 1 to this on day 476. It's been a wild journey and I've achieved some frankly insane things, but despite all of the goals I set myself being achieved besides one, that one final goal has driven me so insane I've decided to quit the world, which seems dramatic, but allow me to show you exactly what the journey was like, as well as what the world looks like now. I am genuinely so proud of this world. It's one of my favorite Minecraft worlds I've made, period, and the fact that it all came from this single chest is absolutely nuts. And so yeah, if you want to see this entire journey, it was all live streamed. I'll leave a link to the playlist down below if you want to see all 50 episodes, but for now, this is the brief version of what it's been like to play Superflat Survival for 1 full year, my favorite challenge I've ever set myself, and what the world looks like after all of that time. But first, let's explain how any of this is possible, because the obvious question when you don't have structures is how do you do anything? And the simple answer to that is, although some resources can be obtained by killing mobs, the key 2 drops come from zombies because they have a rare chance of dropping both carrots and iron. Iron can be used to craft a bucket and a cauldron, which means you can get water if you kill enough of these zombies, and carrots can be used to sustain yourself as well as to breed pigs. Now, if you use that bucket of water you just got to kill some more of those zombies, they'll turn into drowns, and drowns have a chance of dropping copper instead of dropping iron. Copper can be used to make a lightning rod, use that with the pigs you had from before, and boom, the lightning strike suddenly turns into a zombie piglin. Killing zombie piglins gives you a rare chance of getting gold, and so if you get enough of that gold together, you get a golden apple, which you can use with a splash potion of weakness to make yourself a villager. Except you can't make a splash potion of weakness. What you instead have to do is stand next to a witch for long enough for the witch to make you one instead. It's absolutely insane, but that is how we got the first villager, and that's how we turned the village into a village empire, and then I made the villager empire into a much better rounded world. Get it? Rounded world. Anyway, I made myself an iron farm, and from here, it was easy to make any gear, including the full diamond set that I have slowly got from villagers. It's super nice, and that's where you left me off last time if you've seen the last 3 recaps. However, you might be questioning what has been the goal since then, and the answer to that has been relatively simple. I wanted to get every type of wood, every color of dye, as well as every single type of block that is possible to be traded with. And so the first 2 ones of those were really hard. Getting every single type of wood involves basically RNG on the Wandering Trader over and over again. Getting every single type of dye, on the other hand, is relatively easier. I mean, it does involve that same RNG, but once you get cocoa beans, you have brown. Once you get blue, you have not only blue, but light blue. Once you have green, you have green, light green, and cyan if you've got the blue as well. So in theory, it was going to be easier, but what ended up happening is I got all of my trees, I placed them around this beautiful circle, as you can see right here, and then getting every single one of these dies was a real grind. I was sure this was going to be the last thing I did in my world, which was great because where we left off last time, I was still waiting for lightning. Lightning is absolutely crucial for any of this to work, because for me to get any gold whatsoever, it has to come from zombie piglins, and zombie piglins can only happen when there is lightning. However, lightning is a random event in your Minecraft world, and so after my last stream, you might have recalled I was waiting for some serious time. I knew I was well overdue for it, at day 300 something, and I was like, I know lightning is just around the corner. I had fallen for gambler's fallacy, the idea that just because a bad thing has happened enough times, a good thing is due to happen, or maybe the other way around, that, if you flip a coin over and over, the odds are always 50-50, even though it feels like if you get tails 5,000 times in a row, that the next result must not be 50-50, but the coin is always the same, and I want to tell you about how much this broke me, but first, let's explain the good things that happened. So, first things first, my previous iron farm, which stopped working, I decided to just abandon altogether and make a second iron farm, which was more efficient and made from my lovely mangrove wood. I got myself some lily pads, which were pretty cool. I mean, I don't know what to do with them, but the Wandering Trade gave them to me, and I'm perfectly happy with that. And then I got myself some birch trees. Get this, I finally had the last tree type in the world. I really chose to admire this for quite some time, because now I finally had every single type of wood possible. I then decided to do a lot more breeding of pigs. I took advantage of the long wait for lightning to get as many of these lovely pre-gold ingots as I can. I've started to see pigs as merely, conduits, gateways to getting lightning, and that's perfectly okay. There's no problems with that. I even upgrade my chestplate with thorns free. I'm feeling really good about everything, and I know that lightning must be just around the corner now. And the good news is that right after I put sharpness 5 and looting 3 on my diamond sword, and then after I start making an automatic composter, then what happens is lightning doesn't strike. But, obviously, what finally happens on day 401 while I'm building this mountain next to my hill, because my previous mountain just wasn't very good, is you start to see it rain, and then just after, you start to see these flashes in the sky, and do you know what that means? That means apparently the pigs are causing issues of the world, and they're making it look like lightning, when there is none whatsoever, because on day 403, the rain stops. Don't worry though, I'm very aware it's just around the corner, and so I do a little bit more busy work, and I build myself dirt versions of various structures in Minecraft, like this old-style villager house. I make this jungle temple, and it's super nice, and I also get myself the curses, because this was something they made possible in Minecraft at this point. You could officially get Curse of Vanishing from a villager, which I then applied to my diamond pickaxe. A great prank for future Toycat. This is something that is going to go very well in the future, and I'm going to really enjoy that. What I also enjoyed was on day 418 and 19 is I tried to get myself as many drowns as I could. The first night I decided to get zombies from the outside world and then drown them that way, and honestly I got no copper my entire first night, so instead I gathered my zombies at the farm where I did this before, walked them in there, and got 3 full copper ingots the second day. Honestly though, spending an entire day for 3 copper ingots is pretty damn bad. It is enough to make a lightning rod, but I think the thing that I was much more impressed by was taking all of the redstone that has fallen across my world. So there is a rare witch drop that is the redstone, and it just so happens that I've killed enough witches that now I have enough of it to make a redstone block, an activator rail, as well as a note block if I really want to, and you better believe I really want to, which is why on day 420 it starts to rain. I know it's going to be amazing, and so while I wait for it, I make a little note block banjo with hay and a little manual note block song, and what I do is I call with my note blocks for lightning to strike, and it doesn't, and I really cannot stress enough just how painful that is. Anyway, so my big plan here with curing villagers is I want to get villagers with specific professions that I can't make the blocks for, which means I won't be able to repeatedly sell things to them, and I'll have to instead rely on buying things. This means I need to get a lot of emeralds, and I feel like the best source of emeralds is melons from my previously cured villagers, which is why I go absolutely wild on this melon farm. I make a huge one that has massive oversupply, and this oversupply allows me to get this many emeralds by the time that I'm done, by the way. So things are going very, very well, except for 45 live streams in, I have still not found any lightning. Just to give you perspective here, because it's something that blew my mind, and I went back and checked the notes for this, Superflat world, just to make sure I had lightning in my first 100 days. Then I had it on day 127, day 152, and day 350. So I have a long history. I've had lightning 4 times in the first 350 days, and so given in mind that between then and now, it's been almost 100 days already, I'm getting pretty pretty exhausted, and the only thing that makes me feel any amount better after getting all of these emeralds and all of these enchantments and making all these dirt structures and improving the museum is that on day 464 I finally get green dye. This means I finally can make a green sheep and have all 16 colors of wool, glass, and any other type of dyed block that I want. I immediately used some of this to make my melon farm look a little bit better, but that was the last big amazing accomplishment that I made. I waited for a full 20 extra days after this point. I have been staying up all night at this point, bear in mind, so it sounds like it's just 100 something days, but bear in mind it was live stream 34 when I last had lightning. I've had 16 full live streams over 2 hours each of just waiting for lightning, and it hasn't struck, and you know, I've got a big rant about that, but what's much more important is to see the actual progress that I have made. I do want to share my rant about how lightning works in Minecraft. Pro tip, it's entirely random and has no ways to really encourage it, despite being so needed, but let's talk about the beauty that is this world first, because this is one of my proudest projects, so let me give you a little bit of a tour in survival. So here it is, the very first build I ever made in my Superflat world, except it's still standing over 100 hours later. It's cool to see just how much the world has changed around it, so for a brief tour around, let's start with my house over here. Wow, this was the first house I made. I made it from dark oak because I only had dark oak saplings for so much of this run. Pro tip, you cannot do a Superflat world if you don't have oak or dark oak. I got quite lucky in that regard, and my house really is the most luxurious you can make, using just dark oak and wool. It's an absolute beauty of a thing, but wait till you see my storage room next door. This is one of the greatest things mankind has ever conceived. As you can see, it's the most organized, beautiful chest room I think anyone has ever made, and honestly, I really like this fence gate thing on the top I did here. I think it's really, really simple and really, really basic, but just having these go round in a circle is a nice little idea. Honestly, there's a lot of things around here which I built and then kind of haven't come back to, but I think that's the beauty of this world. I'm going to show you around it. Again, look, this is what it looks like from above, but I'll show you around from the ground going counterclockwise because I'm not a clock, I don't have to follow their rules, and so let's start with this area here. I built my little farm in front of my house, then I built a little area of my trees, and then I built a cow farm and a sheep farm. I decided to go for a little bit of a weird design on my sheep farm, and then apparently the sheep's caused too many lags, so I just started killing all the sheep, and then there was no grass for them anymore, and so now it doesn't work as a sheep farm, but I left it there, whereas my cow farm is much, much more useful because I can not only get food, although you can see I'm clearly eating cooked mutton instead, but I also can get all the leather that I need to make books to sell to villagers. Not that I do most of my selling to villagers, because as you can see, this is my collection of librarians for various enchantments. It took me a very long time to get most of these, especially mending, for a good price, and the curse of binding, as you saw in this video, getting curses was a really silly thing to do, but I'm glad I have both of them. But as well as that, I've then got these basically villager houses where I keep my cured villagers. So for example, I can sell melons to my boy the farmer over here, for just a single one of these for an emerald each. Yeah, I have this big area around the village which is covered in pathway blocks. This is because in Minecraft there are certain blocks that won't spawn mobs. Pathways are one of the easiest examples. There's also slabs. There's any real partial block won't have mob spawn there. So you can see I've got this big area around here as well as my spawn so that nothing can get there. However, as the world goes a little bit deeper, and indeed we get to the kind of pumpkin farm area. Also, by the way, Bedrock won't spawn mobs, so having a big separation between this and the rest of the world, make sure that no baby zombies can spawn and then accidentally walk over and do some terrible things. But next up, and a little behind that, we have my farms. These are basic versions of all farms. They're relatively primitive. It's where I grow pumpkins, or melons, or sugarcane, or even cocoa beans. I have not got a huge need for a large amount of brown dye, but if I ever do need it, it's very, very easy for me to get a ton because I've got this jungle wood with cocoa beans attached. I've also got a cactus farm over here, but again, cactuses are near valueless. I mean, what could you use them for? I bet you could smelt them in a furnace, except, oh, no furnace. Okay, never mind. Then just behind this, I have my mud brick desert well. Boy, is it a beauty. My dirt villager house, my dirt temple, my dirt mushroom. Yeah, I really was just building everything out of dirt here. I figured, you know what, given that the world is mostly made from it, it makes sense to build as many structures as I could from this stuff, but it never really panned out. You can also see my very big melon farm, with the goal being not only to trade for a bunch of emeralds, which are super important, but also to make a melanger cube. So a menger cube is where you take a cube and you hollow out the inside, kind of like a hole going through this way, a hole going through this way, and then you do it to the next level, so you combine those cubes into a big cube, but with that one has a big hole in the center, and I was going to do this with a bunch more melons going even crazier. This was going to take a huge amount of time, but I thought it would be fun, and honestly, yeah, the only reason that I haven't gone back to that is because while I was waiting, I was doing it, and every time I'd go and wait by the pig farm just in case, and then the lightning would never strike. But yeah, I think this is one of the projects that most inspired me. It's one that I want to see done the most, because when we go to the next level, like these already look kind of crazy when you look inside them. Imagine doing this to the next level. Would be kind of nuts. And then this is my melon farm where I got most of the good views from this video, if you want to see what it's like at the top. Well then, here it is. Whoa, isn't it great to see the big full circle of my world? What's also great, and something you'll spot as the nighttime slowly fades in here, is that the world used to be using dirt as its mob-proofing mechanism, but as you get far enough in the tech tree, you can start using more normal mechanisms. So I have torches in a large part of the world. You'll notice over there, that's one way to torch up the world. This is a different way to torch up the world. I have campfires hiding in the trapdoors. I thought that was a fun thing to put in over there. But overall, you can see that the world really changes its profile overnight, and you can start to see the development a lot more. So the vantage point of this world that I used to use was the big square of water over there. It was something I was going to use as like a slime farming area, or like a deliberate way to stop slime spawning, but I messed up the boundaries and then figured, you know what, I'd better fill it in with water. And then I figured if I've got water that can prevent me from dying from falls anyway, why not make a stairway all the way to heaven? That goes up to the world height, because there was a theory that maybe you'd be able to get some ice if you place water up there. It doesn't actually work. I don't know why it doesn't work, but you cannot. There is no ice obtainable in this world outside of trading with the Wandering Trader, and also, I hope I make this full. So yeah, the Stairway to Heaven is mostly just there for aesthetics. It is a very cool piece of art. Like you can see, it's a perfect square, but because of the angle, when you look at it, it never looks like it is one unless you're perfectly in the center. It looks like a pentagon, it looks like a rhombus, it looks like all sorts of shapes, but it never looks like a square except from one specific angle. I also love my mushroom temple over here. It's one of the best things I've built in this world, and it's one of those fun examples of like, yeah, it's just about as easy for me to get mushrooms here, or giant mushrooms here, as it is in a normal world, and therefore, relatively speaking, it's one of the easier, colourful building blocks to use, and I really like the appearance that it gives. This was where I put all of my villagers in after I closed down my iron farm because it didn't work. I then tried to convert the iron farm to a drown farm. I have this attitude in Minecraft that I don't just want to follow a tutorial to build a farm. I want to understand how the mechanics work, and I want to try and make it myself and then optimize the design. I have more fun doing that, so I've been trying to make a drowned farm here. So I made a mob farm, basically, a very low-leveled one, and then I figured, okay, then we can flow the mobs into one place, and then we could just drown them. It used to be that we killed, iron golems with fire here, but after it stopped working as an iron farm, I figured, why not have a drowned farm? And it technically does create, like, one drowned a night, but yeah, I think I need to work on, like, optimizing out spiders as an example and stuff like that. I have my sheep farm. Every single color of sheep in Minecraft I have. It was a real long time to get the last color, which if I'm not mistaken was blue. Or maybe it was green. It was a real long time to get green dye in the end. Blue dye took some time as well, but like getting these dyes was a real challenge. So to finally have both of these and have brown and purple and every other color you can imagine is super, super nice. Around the world, we have all types of trees. And so this is the acacia section, this is the mangrove section, then we've got the jungle section over there, the birch section, and the spruce thing. I think it's kind of fun. I think that was like an interesting design for a world. Am I allowed to say that about my own stuff? I think I am. This is the iron farm that exists outside of the world's most beautiful house. I assumed I could make this from brick, but I was very wrong because you can't get brick in a Superflat, and I somehow made that mistake about 3 or 4 times. But yeah, it's the world's most beautiful house. It even has a basement which goes all the way down until you can't make a basement anymore. And yeah, personally, I like the look of this thing. I think it's kind of fun. This is the frame rate in my Minecraft world because, yeah, I have too many pigs in one place. I figure because it's taking so long to get lightning, I need to get the most number of pigs converted as I can. However, I've run up into Minecraft Bedrock's like limit of what it can handle before it just starts to die. And I've tried running this on my PC with a 2080 Ti. You know, I've got, like, there's no difference made. There's only so much that Minecraft's code itself can handle, and it's somewhere in the hundreds of pigs, because I only have hundreds of pigs here, and a few pigs over there. Also, you can see, literally, look at the frame rate as I go left and right here, and compare it when I'm just looking away. You can see that at least the game is playable this way. Oh, you can also see something fun. Let's look at the sky real quick. So bear in mind, I'm not looking at the pigs anymore, I'm just near them,
and let's try and eat, and let's watch the sun rise. Oh, the eating actually worked. Oh no, it didn't. That was a lie. So we eat, and then the eating works, except it doesn't, so we eat again, and it doesn't work. And we... Okay, I've managed to eat, and the sun has just about risen out of my screen. It's now gone, which is good news because, you know, the sun is, it goes in a linear motion from east to west, right? Which means that all we have to do is politely sit here, and you know what's going to happen next? Whoa, that was so much more than I was expecting. Did you see that? The sun just went... Time just went backwards by, like, 2 minutes. So yeah, that's the problem with being near the pigs. I can't even just sit here and wait for them to do stuff, because time physically doesn't move at the right speed when I'm nearby. Maybe this is a case where I just need to AFK for long enough, like, literally leave it on overnight, and then pray the pigs don't get hit too much. Maybe that's all I need to do. You know, let me know in the comments if you think that is the only solution you foresee. If you have a better one, I'd also love to know it. But overall, yeah, to finish up the world here, in the center I have my mob farm that was essential to get the iron all those episodes ago, and then I've also got this, which is a museum for the world. Again, I made it out of dirt, grass, and moss, figuring it should be kind of dirt-based if it's in a super flat world. I've kind of gone off that opinion. I think using new and interesting blocks that you obtain yourself is actually far better than making things out of dirt, and mostly because of... I think this is actually not a terrible look for a mansion. It just so happens that using dirt will make anything look terrible. Oh, that was very weird. We're still close enough to the pigs that things don't quite work in a normal way. Like, what's happening there? Oh, the water's flowing just, like, this number of blocks at a time. See, so strange, right? But yeah, this is where I keep my tropical fish. I placed the water in there wrong, so they're all permanently stuck to the bottom of the fish tank. This is where I'm going to be collecting lots of rare items, and this is where I'm eventually going to have every single block in Minecraft on display. I have every single block that starts at A in this chest when it opens, if it will open. There we go. Every single A block that exists, if I'm not mistaken. I've got every single B block. Oh no, this is the rest of the A blocks. And I've got, actually I have most of the B blocks. You can see there's just so many in here, and I've got like I've got the hard ones, blocks of redstone, block of iron, block of this, blue ice, etc. But yeah, there's a lot of blocks to collect in Minecraft, and this is my area where I'm storing them until I can display them all in one place. Honestly, I don't think the museum's even going to hold it in one place, but that's a problem for another time. It is a really fun idea. Also in here, I had an iron golem. I don't know how he died. And I also have a phantom. Should we let my phantom go free? Oh, he doesn't want to go free. Well, I have a phantom. Honestly, this really is one of my favorite Minecraft worlds, and now you've seen the entirety of it that exists so far, and you've also hopefully seen my big problem. Actually, wait, speaking of my big problem, look at the slime just bouncing so slowly. But I also have over here a witch and a cow, so that the witch can throw potions at me. I don't know why she's called avocado oil, but she can throw potions at me, presumably to get weakness for me and a zombie villager, and if she gives me the wrong potion, then I can heal it off using the cow. Oh, that's so weird. Speaking of things that are weird,
this is the part of the original video where I explained why I stopped playing Superflat, and I agree with all of the reasons I said. Simply put, I think the lightning mechanic was too random, and that combined with the lack of real progression outside of it, because there hadn't been any updates, was enough for me to say, yeah, I'm done with this for now. However, there have since been some updates. Both on the me front, I made Superflat Survival, which if you don't know, has a fun Easter egg where in the middle of the two Superflat worlds, there is actually access to this same world. If you want to explore it yourself on a console where you can't download things, that might be a great option for you. But for me, I've also found a new way to play hardcore Superflat. This used to be impossible, because when you enable hardcore, you cannot turn on a bonus chest, and this entire structureless Superflat is impossible without the bonus chest, unless there was some other way to get saplings. Except the only way to get those is the Wandering Trader, and the only way to get emeralds is either a fox, which doesn't spawn in the plains biome, or of course, you can get to a village, but you can't get to a village without trees because you need apples, and so the entire loop is done, unless they were to perhaps add a way of getting emeralds otherwise, and that is what the Wandering Trader update in the Spring Drop will precisely do. That's right, there's going to be a way to sell all of these things to the Wandering Trader, and sadly, the fermented spider eye is out, so too is the hay bale if you can't get a hoe, as well as the water bucket, I would say, and the water bottle, but getting the baked potato is possible if you kill a zombie during the day while it is lit on fire, and the milk bucket is possible if you kill the Wandering Trader just as day comes because he goes invisible at night and he uses a milk bucket to remove that in the morning. The Wandering Trader actually has a source of these because he drinks invisibility at night and then he drinks milk buckets in the day. If you kill him in the very small time frame where he is drinking this, then you can have that milk bucket and you can sell one for 2 emeralds. 3 of those will get you a sapling. There's also the more niche solution of using one of those to get 2 emeralds, using that to get some wood, using the wood to make some hose, and then using the hose to get enough seeds to make a hay bale, selling the hay bales and doing it without as much murder. But the point is that hardcore Superflat on Bedrock will become near impossible, but not fully impossible. And so if you can just do that, eventually you can get wood, and eventually you can follow the same path, but hardcore. Is that a good idea? No, not in the slightest. Just play regularly. It's already hard enough, but you know how I am when it comes to silly challenges that seem impossible. I am so incredibly tempted, and so you better believe that that is something you'll expect to see after the update. For anyone who is missing the Superflat Survival, just know you've got something more fun to look forward to, and if you need something in the meantime, there's always Ultraflat. With that said, thank you for watching this very normal length video, and I'll see you in the next one. Goodbye.